Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes Prodigy of Shinigami Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Valley of the End, Shinobi World. 3 years before the current time, this valley, on the border of the lands of fire and sound, was once the site of a legendary battle between Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju more than a century ago. The valley became a scar on the earth itself. The two shinobi that fought here forever etched into the valley by the two statues that line the waterfall that ran through this place. It is here, in the shadow of these famed warriors, that two other shinobi were fighting in a desperate battle of their own. These two shinobi were Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha. The manipulations going on around them had poisoned Sasuke's mind as he tried to kill his best friend in order to gain the fabled Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto, meanwhile, was desperately trying to stop Sasuke from leaving Konoha to join the vile shinobi Orochimaru, who wanted to take Sasuke's body for his own. Despite his efforts, however, Naruto was unable to convince his best friend to see error of his ways and had to use more force as their battle reached its ultimate climax. Sasuke prepared to use his curse mark-enhanced Chidori while Naruto prepared his Kyuubi-enhanced Rasengan. With their jutsus fully charged, Naruto and Sasuke at each other, their jutsus colliding before exploding, which caused severe damage to the statues of the famed founders of Konoha. Sasuke was knocked back by the explosion, smacking into the statue of Madara before falling to the ground, still alive but unconscious and critically injured. Fate was, tragically, not so kind to Naruto, who was pierced through his heart by Sasuke's Chidori and was launched into the lake below, his body further paralyzed by the electricity generated by the lighting-style jutsu. As Naruto fell further down into the depths of the lake, he could barely hear the Kyuubi's voice as he appeared before the beast's cage. "Wake up, you fool, we're dying!" the tailed beast yelled. The Kyuubi's attempt to rally his Jinchuriki was a useless gesture, however, as Naruto's were too grave for even him to heal. "You know as well as I do that we're already dead, Kyuubi," Naruto replied. Before the Kyuubi could say anything, however, Naruto said something that shocked the tailed beast. "I was hoping to do something about your hatred someday as well. I guess that's now going to be impossible, however." "I'm sorry, Kyuubi, for letting you down," the dying ninja said. The Kyuubi was, naturally, stunned by this. The Kyuubi wouldn't have believed what his Jinchuriki just said except for the fact that the look in Naruto's eyes had as serious a look as they've ever been. "Normally I would have accused someone who said that of lying to me. For some reason, however, I can tell that you're being honest with me." "Sighs, maybe if we had lived that might have succeeded," the Kyuubi said as the darkness began to consume him and Naruto. "I wanted to ask you something, Kyuubi, and since we're dying I might as well ask it now. Do you have a real name?" Naruto asked. This shocked the Kyuubi. No one since the time of the Sage of the Six Paths had ever thought to ask for his name. "Since you're not as bad as I thought, I guess I can tell you. My name is Kurama," he said as the last vestiges of life within him and Naruto vanished, but not before Naruto commented on the tailed beast's name. "So your name is Kurama, huh? I think it suits you." "Sighs, farewell, Kurama," Naruto said as he awaited the afterlife, unaware that he and Kurama would not be so easily separated. Konoha Hospital. Meanwhile, Kakashi had just brought Sasuke back from the Valley of End, having found his unconscious body. He had not found any sign of Naruto, and had assumed that he would be healed by the Kyuubi and would return to Konoha within a couple of hours. As a team of medics, led by the Tsunade, were treating Sasuke for his wounds, which bordered on the mortal level, Kakashi was trying to calm down Sakura, who had arrived at the hospital upon receiving and who surprised her sensei with her reaction. She was angry but not at Naruto. "How could you leave Naruto alone like that, Kakashi-sensei? You saw what he had to do just to stop Sasuke from leaving. He's probably badly hurt now as well," Sakura yelled. "Sasuke was the only one I found, Sakura. I wouldn't worry him, though. His wounds have always healed quickly, so he probably won't be gone for no more than a couple of hours," Kakashi reassured his squad member. What he didn't was that it actually going to take a few years before Naruto returned, and, even then, it would not last. Shortly after dying, Naruto arrived in the Soul Society, where he was greeted by his Minato and Kushina, his parents, who had sensed their son's presence when they felt the power of Kurama. Naruto was surprised, though strangely relieved, to find out that Kurama was still inside him. The tailed beast was still bound to Naruto's soul. It didn't take Naruto long to make good on his promise to Kurama, earning his trust and shortly thereafter, as an unintended benefit, full access to his powers. After reuniting with the third Hokage and meeting several other shinobi, all of whom had become Shinigami A/N, the full list of shinobi in the Godai 13, with their respective ranks, can be seen at the end of this chapter. Naruto decided to become a Shinigami himself and entered the Shino Academy. Naruto was surprised to find out that he was considered a prodigy there, and apparently the best one the Godai 13 have had to date. He was also surprised by, though was happy with, the fact that no one cared about his status as a Jinchuriki and, as such, did not suffer from the prejudices that he had to deal with back in Konoha. This allowed to befriend people more easily and allowed him to reach his full potential as a Shinigami. Naruto's skills and power allowed him to graduate from the academy in 1 year, Naruto joined the 13th Division after he graduated, and his captain, Jushiro Yukitake, decided to make the blonde his lieutenant, making Naruto the first lieutenant of that division since the death of Kaien Shiba. This was where Naruto found himself, 18 months later, when they arrived. The small prison cell in the barracks was seldom without an occupant thanks to Byakuya Kachiki's strict adherence to the law. The person imprisoned in the cell right now was a special case, however, for it was none other than Byakuya's younger sister-in-law, Rukia. The adopted member of the Kachiki family was currently speaking to her longtime friend Renji Abarai, who was getting annoyed with her comments about his new promotion to lieutenant of the 6th Division. "Do a good job, Lieutenant. You're very strong, Lieutenant." "You have weird eyebrows, Lieutenant," Rukia said as an irritated Renji grabbed the bars of the cell. "That's it, damn it. Let me at her. I'm gonna," Renji said until both he and Rukia sensed a very large, and very familiar, surge of Ryatsu emanated nearby and approached them. Renji's face paled as he knew what that meant. Maybe you should run, Renji," Rukia said, knowing full well who was the source of the Ryatsu. Renji, heeding his friend's advice, began to run towards the only door in and out of the prison room. Unfortunately for Renji, it was too late for him to run as that door suddenly flew off its hinges and smacked the bars of the cell before it shattered into millions of pieces. Renji flinched heavily when he heard the culprit's voice. "Tattoo brows." The voice roared as the person charged into the cell and right at Renji. "Please calm down, Naruto. I swear I can explain," Renji pleaded before he was silenced by a kick to the face, courtesy of the 13th Division Lieutenant. "You went to arrest Rukia and attacked her. You think you can just explain that way?" Naruto yelled as he grabbed Renji by his shahakusho and shook him until he was almost unconscious. Normally both he and Renji were good friends and were basically brothers. After he was informed of Renji's actions during Rukia's arrest, however, Naruto's temper, which, among many of Naruto's other attributes, has become legendary in the past year and a half, was unleashed. His temper did not flare up often, but when it did there was little anyone could do to stop him if no one from the shinobi world, or at least a close friend, was nearby. Thankfully, for Renji, Rukia was there. "Please stop it, Naruto. It's not worth hurting Renji," Rukia pleaded, getting the attention of her commanding officer, who let go of the badly bruised Renji. Naruto ran up to her cell. "Rukia, are you hurt?" Naruto asked her with obvious concern. "I'm alright, Naruto. Just a little down, that's all," Rukia said as she thought about her lieutenant's very strong protective nature. He was always like this with the members of his squad. Like a shepherd to his flock, he was very concerned over the safety and well-being of the members of the 13th Division, and Rukia, knowing her lieutenant far too well, knew that even if he was, for whatever reason, transferred to another division, that sentiment would still be there. Naruto nodded, but before he said anything, however, Renji managed to get up. "Naruto, I know you're upset, and I'm really sorry for what I did, but can you at least let me speak to Rukia in peace?" Renji asked, to which Naruto sighed. "Fine, but the next time something like this happens again, tattoo brows, I swear to Kami you'll be face down on the ground eating bricks faster than you can say tailed beast," Naruto warned, still simmering from his latest outburst. "In any case, I have to report to old man Yukitake right now, so I'll come back to check on you later, Rukia," Naruto said, to which both Rukia and Renji nodded. As Naruto left the 6th Division barracks, he couldn't help but think of his father's warning earlier in the day when he had been running a few errands for his captain. "I didn't want to tell you this just yet, but now it seems that the time to wait has finally passed. Keep a close eye on my captain whenever you're in his presence, as I fear this is his doing," Minato warned him, though there wasn't a real need to do so. Unlike the rest of the Godai 13, the shinobi turned Shinigami, who were known as Shinobigami by many of their colleagues, had suspected Aizen of plotting something along with Ikamaru and Tosen. They had even figured out the true nature of Aizen's Zanpakuto, a fact that earned him even less trust amongst the Shinobigami. Even the thick-headed Naruto could tell something was wrong with those three captains. Naruto's suspicions were also shared by both Kurama and his Zanpakuto, which showed just how poor a mask Aizen wore. Because of the fact that the three captains had everyone else in the Godai 13 fooled, however, the shinobi kept their suspicions to themselves until they could prove any wrongdoing on the part of those three. As Naruto raced towards his barracks, he clenched his fist at the thought of the 5th Division captain. "For your sake, Aizen, this better not have anything to do with you," Naruto thought to himself. He was unaware of the fact that, even now, the one person Aizen had the most interest in was preparing a daring operation into the heart of the Soul Society itself. 13th Division Barracks, Suriidai. More than a week later, Naruto had woken up before daybreak, as he had since the day he had visited Rukia. There was too much on his mind for him to sleep. It had already been a trying week since Rukia's arrest, as Naruto sat on the roof of this barracks to watch the sunrise. First the execution sentenced out to his friend occurred, then his subsequent argument with Byakuya nearly coming to blows, though they had both never really seen eye to eye on anything before. Byakuya had found Naruto's lack of formality and even greater lack of respect for authority figures displeasurable, while Naruto actively despised Byakuya for his poor treatment of his subordinates, and especially for placing the law even above his own family. This gulf had only gotten worse since Rukia's arrest, with Naruto's parents, Captain Yukitake and Shursui Uchiha being the only ones that could stop the two Shinigami from trying to kill each other. The final thing that occupied Naruto's mind was the arrival of 5 intruders to the Rukongai sector of the Soul Society, one of them being the one whom Rukia had lost her powers to, and their attempt to enter the Shinigami. He especially had mixed feelings over what to think of that guy, who Rukia kept calling Ichigo. On the one hand, this Ichigo was responsible for Rukia's predicament. On the other hand, however, he was in the Soul Society now and was, more than likely, trying to save Rukia, so Naruto assumed that he actually did care for his friends. As Naruto pondered his next course of action, he felt a familiar Ryatsu approach him. "Good morning, Shisui-sensei. How are you feeling?" Naruto asked the Uchiha who had acted as his teacher since his graduation, teaching him skills that the Shino Academy instructors could not. "I'm alright, Naruto. I was actually going to ask you the same thing. Both of your parents and Captain Yukitake are worried about you since you haven't been getting much sleep recently," Shisui said. Naruto sighed at this comment. "I've just had a lot on my mind recently, that's all," Naruto said. Shisui, thanks to his time as Naruto's master, knew which particular thought was on Naruto's mind at the moment. "You should wait until the intruders enter the Shinigami first if you plan to confront them," Shisui said. The Uchiha knew that Naruto was planning to confront these intruders, regardless of what anyone tried to do to convince him to do otherwise, as the blonde probably believed that, by confronting them, he might find an answer to a question that must have been bothering him. "I know, sensei, but I've never been the most patient guy, and every day I wait is a day closer to Rukia's," Naruto said before he and Shisui noticed that a small light appeared in the skies above the Shinigami as the sun began to rise. This light appeared to come closer and closer to the home of the Shinigami until, to the shock of both Shinobigami, the light collided with the soul shield membrane that surrounded the Shinigami. The small light was held back by the membrane for a few moments until, to the further shock of Naruto and the rest of the Shinigami, the light broke through the barrier and, after a minute or so, split into 4 streaks which began to descend to the city below. Everyone in the Shinigami already knew what this meant even before the barrier was breached. Before Shisui realized that Naruto was already heading towards the nearest light, which he assumed to be one of the intruders. "It looks like they've finally arrived. It's time to see what kind of person you truly are, Ichigo Kurosaki," Naruto thought as he entered the nearest sewer entrance, having learned the layout of the underground network a few months prior, in order to approach the intruders without being detected. Underground sewer system, Shinigami. Several hours later, the massive underground network was barely used as its layout was known to a handle of Shinigami, most of them from the 4th Division. One of these people, a young man named Hanetaro Yamada, was currently navigating the system. What made this foray stand out, however, were the 2 intruders, who are called Ryoka by most of the other Shinigami, who were following him. One of these intruders, a guy with short orange hair and wearing a Soul Reaper Shihakusho, walked to Hanetaro's side. "Hey Hanetaro, can I ask you something?" he asked. Hanetaro got a little anxious before he nodded in reply. "When you talked about how there aren't many other Shinigami that knew their way around these sewers, you looked like you were going to add something to what you were saying before I interrupted you. Could you tell me what you were going to say?" he asked. "Well, there have been stories over the past few months, Ichigo. Apparently some of the other members of the 4th Division claim that they have seen another Shinigami walking through the sewers. They claim that the person is not of the 4th Division though. As of right now, none of them have been able to get a good look at the person to positively identify them," Hanetaro explained as both Ichigo and the other intruder, a man from the Rukangai region named Ganji Shiba, secretly hoped that this person was either a tall tale or, if they were real, that they would not be in the sewer right now. This would, apparently, not be the case. "Why don't we change that, then, since I'm here now?" a voice from the darkness said, causing Ichigo and the others to stop in their tracks. Ichigo gripped Zangetsu as he responded to the voice, prepared to fight whoever this opponent might be. "Who the hell are you?" Ichigo asked as Zangetsu was unsheathed. Ichigo looked at the path in front of him since the voice appeared to come from that direction. Hanetaro, having recognized the voice, suddenly paled as he had a good idea of why that person was there. "It can't be you're the one who's been using the sewer passages?" Hanetaro asked in horror, to which the person responded to the affirmative. Ichigo, his patience growing thin, had had enough of this person's mind games. "Show yourself, damn it!" Ichigo commanded, to which the person sighed. "You don't have to tell me that. I was going to do that anyways," the person said. The person soon stood before the 3 would-be rescuers, their appearance made visible to them by one of the fluorescent light bulbs that provided dim lighting to the underground network. It was a guy about Ichigo's age, though a little shorter than he was, with short and spiky blonde hair and blue eyes. He wore a standard shihakusho with an orange sash wrapped around his waist, an armband that had a badge of some sort around his left sleeve, and a black headband, with a metal plate emblazoned with the kanji 4 shinobi sewn onto it, wrapped around his forehead. He had his zanpakuto, which was a katana with an orange hilt and a red spiral-patterned tsuba, sheathed and secured to his sash. The first thing that caught Ichigo's mind as being unusual, however, were the 6 marks on Guy's face, 3 on each cheek, that resembled whiskers. They made him look like some sort of fox. The second, and more important, thing that made this guy stand out from the other Shinigami Ichigo had encountered until then was the massive amount of Ryatsu that emanated from him, as it was greater than anything Ichigo had ever felt in his short time as a Shinigami. Ichigo prepared for what he thought would be the most difficult battle he had fought until then as the mystery guy turned his gaze towards him. "Who are you?" Ichigo asked. The guy pointed his right thumb as his headband as he answered. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, lieutenant of the 13th Division, he declared, shocking both Ganju and Ichigo. How the hell can a lieutenant have so much Ryatsu? I had a feeling that the lieutenants were no pushover. But this is ridiculous, Ganju said. It was a sentiment that was also shared by Ichigo, as the orange-haired Shinigami had fought a lieutenant, in this case Renji Abarai, before, and even he, with his crappy senses, could tell that guy before him now was on another level, another planet even, by comparison. If this guy's power was far greater than another lieutenant, then why was he at the same rank? Because all the spots for captain are already taken, plus I haven't achieved one of the major requirements yet. That's enough about me, though, Naruto said as he focused his stare at Ichigo again. Are you Ichigo Kurosaki? The one that Rukia talked about? He asked, surprising Ichigo, who took a while before he made a response. I guess I am. What's it to you? Ichigo asked, to which Naruto sighed. Why are you here? Is it perhaps to save her? Naruto asked, giving the impression that he ignored Ichigo's question. Yes, I am, and I just asked you, why does it matter to you? Ichigo asked with the irritation he felt clearly evident in his voice. It matters to me because Rukia and I are in the same division, you baka, Naruto replied, stunning Ichigo with his statement. Before Ichigo could say anything, however, Naruto continued to speak. Based on what Rukia told me, I have a feeling that you and I are alike in many ways. Size, unlike you, however, I still don't know what to do about her execution. That's why I'm going to put you to the test to see if you're truly strong enough to save her. I think that if I do that, then I can answer that question, Naruto said. Ganju, at this point, went up to Ichigo, who was standing a few yards away from Naruto. He could be setting a trap for us, Ichigo. How can we be sure he ain't lying? The Shiba clansman said before Ichigo cut him off. I can already tell you that he isn't lying to us, Ganju. If he had wanted to defeat us, he could have done it the moment he spotted us. Even I could tell that the difference in our powers is just too great. If he wanted to simply end our rescue, he could have knocked us out before we knew what happened. He's pretty good at concealing his Ryatsu. Instead, he confronted us head-on, so I'm willing to take a leap of faith here, Ichigo said before he turned his attention to Naruto. What's this little test you have in mind? He asked the lieutenant, who flashed a smirk. It's nothing too complicated. All you have to do is fight me. You don't have to beat, though. All you have to do is wound me once. It doesn't even have to be a serious wound, though we'll not be using what powers we need in order to win. If you can do that, then you've passed. Any questions? Naruto explained as he unsheathed his Zanpakuto. What are we waiting for? Let's do this, Naruto Uzumaki, Ichigo said as both he and Naruto charged at each other. It wasn't long before their blades to collide with each other, signifying that the two Shinigami had begun their battle. As Naruto and Ichigo clashed in the sewers below the Siriidii, both Ganju and Hanetaro watched with the shock they were feeling clearly etched into their faces. Ganju was shocked at seeing this display of power on Naruto's part. Even though it was clear that the blonde-haired Shinigami was using less than a quarter of his strength, he was clearly getting the better of his opponent, who looked like he had been run over by a freight train while Naruto had yet to receive even a single wound. Hanetaro, on the other hand, was amazed by the fact that Naruto had not taken Ichigo down after 20 minutes had passed. Hanetaro had witnessed what the former shinobi was capable of with using that level of strength when Naruto protected him from a couple of 11th Division members who had been bullying him around. The amount of strength Naruto was fighting at right now was at the level of a captain, so the fact that Ichigo was still able to fight him was nothing short of a miracle. Naruto was also impressed by Ichigo's strength, even as he had forced the orange-haired Shinigami on the defensive. With the exception of his fellow Shinobigami and the captains that he fought when they tried to gauge his strength, everyone else would have lost a fight against him in the first few minutes. Ichigo has not only managed to keep fighting him, the would-be rescuer had even managed to tire Naruto out considerably, as he had been forced to use both his Shuinpa and Kido against Ichigo. Ichigo suddenly swung Zangetsu as Naruto's chest before the blonde could continue his attack. As Naruto shunpoed yet again, he took a moment to note Ichigo's massive amount of Ryatsu before he pointed his right index finger at Ichigo. Heido number 4. Byakuya, Naruto said. He generated a concentrated lightning bolt that he then discharged at Ichigo. The orange-haired managed to dodge the attack as Naruto suddenly appeared above him. You're not bad, Ichigo, but you're going to have to try harder than that, Naruto said rather bluntly as he swung his Zanpakuto at Ichigo's head. I'm not finished just yet, Naruto Uzumaki, so don't act as if I am already beaten. You may be much stronger than I am, but I won't give up. I have to rescue Rukia, and if that means passing this little test of yours, then I will do it, Ichigo said in response to Naruto's comment. Naruto already knew that Ichigo was not finished but was trying to push the human to see just how much strength he had. After blocking Naruto's slash, Ichigo, to the former shinobi's surprise, stopped moving and had placed his Zanpakuto on his shoulders. Naruto wasn't the only one that was confused by Ichigo's actions, as both Hanetaro and Ganju were also taken aback by this. What the hell is Ichigo doing? Ganju thought to himself as Ichigo just stood in that position, unmoving. Are you okay, Ichigo? Hanetaro said as a sudden and massive burst of Ryatsu emanated throughout the area. Since the underground sewers were so deep below the surface that only those in the passages would have felt this upsurge in power. Naruto looked on as Ichigo suddenly turned his glare towards him, The former shinobi's eyes widened as Ichigo's eyes suddenly glowed a light blue. "I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but now it's time to show you my resolve, Naruto Uzumaki," Ichigo said as Naruto looked at him in shock before he flashed a smirk. "Resolve, huh? So it is your will that has helped you through all this," Naruto thought to himself as he prepared to dodge the oncoming attack. The Shinobigami was surprised when Ichigo lifted his massive blade. With the blade pointed towards the ceiling, it looked as if he intended to slash at Naruto despite the fact that he was 20 feet from the blonde. Ichigo then swung his Zanpakuto, which, to Naruto's surprise, unleashed some sort of massive beam of Ryatsu as it was swung. Before anyone realized it, the beam reached Naruto, who suddenly vanished behind the light generated by Ichigo's attack. After a few moments, the attack finally dissipated, leaving baying a column of smoke and a canyon-like chasm on the floor of the hallway. Ichigo looked on as his breathing became slow and heavy. "Did I get him that time?" Ichigo asked himself as he fell to his knees, his exhaustion and wounds having finally caught up to him. Though Ichigo assumed that Naruto did survive the attack, he wasn't sure if Naruto was able to fully escape the onslaught. As the column of smoke continued to dissipate at a slow pace, Ichigo and his two companions suddenly heard Naruto say something that shocked all three of them. "You something else, Ichigo, you know that? You actually managed to wound me," Naruto said as the smoke finally cleared enough for the three would-be rescuers to see what had happened. Ichigo and Ganju couldn't believe what they were seeing. Naruto stood before them as if he was still unscathed. It was hard to tell, however, as the Shinobigami's entire body was now enveloped by what appeared to be a Ryatsu shroud that was in the form of flickering yellow flames. Naruto now wore what appeared to be a necklace made of Magatama beads, while an image of a larger Magatama appeared on the shroud where it enveloped Naruto's abdomen. The round circle of larger bead-like image was itself strange, as it looked like a spiral pattern of some sort. In addition to the shroud, Naruto's hair was now spiked up with the two endmost locks now resembling horns. As final change in his appearance, Naruto's eyes had changed color, turning from blue to orange. The change in appearance was accompanied by an increase in Ryatsu that only Ichigo could withstand without being pinned down to the floor, though he had already fallen to his knees prior to this form. A/N Naruto just used his Nine Tails Kyuubi Chakra Mode KCM. Ichigo was shocked, but surprisingly it wasn't from either the changes in Naruto's appearance or power. "Why are you still unscathed? I thought you said that I wounded you," Ichigo said, to which Naruto sighed. "You did wound me, Baka. If I hadn't unleashed this form when I did, that wound would have actually been fatal," Naruto explained away. Naruto then, to everyone's shock, dispersed the form that he had taken, which undid both the increase in his powers and the change in appearance. When the KCM dispersed, Ichigo, Ganju, and especially Hanataro, were surprised to see that Naruto had indeed been wounded. The blonde-haired Shinigami had what was clearly a slash wound that reached his left shoulder to what appeared to be inches above where his heart and major blood vessels. Ichigo realized what that wound meant if his smirk was anything to go by. "I guess I passed your little test, Naruto," Ichigo said as his two companions got back to their feet. "So you did, Ichigo," Naruto said as he motioned for Hanataro to heal the orange-haired Shinigami. As Hanataro began to heal a reluctant Kurosaki, he turned his gaze to Naruto's wound. Naruto noticed Yamada's concerned expression and waved it off. "You don't have to worry about me, Hanataro. You should already know that this wound will probably be healed in a few minutes anyways, so focus your attention to Ichigo," Naruto reasoned. The former shinobi then turned his attention to both Ganju and the somehow conscious Ichigo when he saw that both had expressions on their faces that screamed confusion. "I guess this would be the best time for an explanation about who I am and what I'm going to do now. Am I right?" Naruto asked. He sighed when the two men nodded as he realized that this would take a while. 2 hours later, Naruto had finished his explanation to Ichigo and Ganju a few minutes prior, and was now headed towards the sewer entrance that was located right next to the barracks of his division. After getting the group to agree to not talk about anything that he said to them after he parted from them, Naruto told them about himself, including a little bit about his past life, since all of the Shinobigami did remember their past, and about the existence of the Shinobigami. The former shinobi then agreed to let Ichigo and his friends continue their efforts to rescue Rukia. Naruto, thanks to his battle with Kurosaki, even agreed to help the intruders with the rescue. Due to the suspicious nature of Rukia's execution, however, Naruto told the group that he would not join the group as it would be better if he got the other Shinobigami to help them as well. Though Ichigo was suspicious of Naruto's claim, he finally relented after a few minutes. After taking a few more minutes to explain he planned to do to the group, Naruto left, having agreed to meet with Ichigo and his friends, including those that were not present, once Rukia had been rescued. Naruto, despite being aware of the possible manipulation surrounding Rukia's sentence, decided not to tell Ichigo of these dark designs just yet as he had no solid proof of them. Naruto decided to ask his dad to hold a meeting with the other Shinobigami to inform them of the situation and to plan their course of action. Naruto didn't have to worry about the possibility of any of them refusing to help since they had been planning to deal with this situation anyways, though the group of former shinobi had yet to decide if they would have to forcibly stop the execution. As Naruto finally reached the ladder leading to the sewer entrance, he reflected on what had happened in these hallways today. He was especially reflected on his opponent, a thought that was not lost on the part of his inner entities. "It's just like Rukia said, Naruto, he is a lot like you, A familiar voice said to him from within his mind. I guess he is, Kurama, though I'm shocked that his powers are still growing even now. To think that he's already at the level that he is makes me wonder if he even knows how much potential, Naruto replied. Says the kid who is already at the level where he can obtain Bankai yet refuses to do so, another voice said in a mocking tone. This caused a giant vein to suddenly poke out of Naruto's forehead. Are you seriously going to bring that up? I thought that we agreed to honor my dad's request to wait for that until us Shinigami have dealt with that Sonk Aizen and his 2 lackeys, Naruto said in an irritated tone before he heard that same voice say what he said. We did agree to that, Naruto. But let's imagine for a moment that Aizen is the one responsible for this entire ordeal and that he finally make his move against the Soul Society. Even though you're able to see past his illusions, your Shirkai isn't going to be enough to deal with him. If you really want to save Rukia, you're going to have to make that decision, and it has to be made now, Naruto, the voice said. Just as Naruto was about to sigh at this lecture, Kurama stepped in. This guy may get on my nerves every time we have a conversation, Naruto, but he does have a point, the tailed beast said in agreement. You've always known how to push my buttons, don't you, Kamikaze? Translation, Divine Wind? I guess I shouldn't be surprised since you are my Zanpakuto. Sighs, you do realize that I already know all of this, right? Because I know all of that already, I was going to tell you as well as Kurama that I plan to finally begin my Bankai training after I have this meeting with the others, Naruto said. Both of his internal resident were surprised by this but were unable to say anything before Naruto continued to speak. I promised my dad that I would wait a bit before I began that training. If Aizen is the one who's responsible for Rukia's sentence, however, I can't afford to wait any longer. I'm going to need that power to deal with that man, so I'm going to ask Shisui-sensei to help me with my training, which I plan to begin tonight. As for my dad, as long as it actually helps us in stopping Aizen, what he doesn't know won't hurt him, right? Naruto explained. The former shinobi could tell that Kamikaze was smirking after hearing all of this as he began to climb the ladder out of the sewers. 4 hours later, Naruto was losing his patience as he waited, alongside the other lieutenants, for the officer of the 4th Division that was supposed to deliver the lastest update on the situation with Ichigo and the other intruders 2 hours ago. After getting out of the underground sewers, Naruto first headed to his room in the 13th Division to change into another Shihakusho so as to not arouse suspicions with the tear that his earlier uniform now sported. After changing and placing his Zanpakuto in his room, he went to find his father. He managed to find his dad at the 5th Division barracks and managed to get him to hold a meeting with the other Shinigami, before either Naruto or Minato could even look for the others. However, a Hell Butterfly came with orders for all lieutenants to head to their assembly area to receive the latest report on the Ryoka invasion. Naruto and his dad had arrived at the meeting room first, with Haku, Fugaku, and Hiruzen arriving shortly afterwards. Minato managed to inform the 3 of Naruto's encounter with Ichigo and of the meeting they would hold before all of the other lieutenants, minus Yuichiro Kusajishi of the 11th Division, arrived. As the lieutenants now waited for the report to arrive, Naruto was talking with Renji as well as Ranjika Matsumoto, the lieutenant of the 10th Division. I guess I can't say I'm surprised. This Ichigo guy sounds way too much like myself and my predecessor Kaien. After all, Naruto said, making sure that he acted as though he had yet to meet Kurosaki. Renji had just told Naruto of the conversation he had with Rukia as he escorted her to the Senzakyu. The part where Rukia reacted to the knowledge that Ichigo was still alive was the part that Naruto was responding to. That may be true, Naruto, but I doubt he has as much skill as either of you, Ranjika said. I wouldn't be too sure of that, Lieutenant Matsumoto, another voice said in response. The 3 lieutenants turned around and were surprised to see that it was Fugaku that had replied. These intruders were able to defeat Jidambo, survived an encounter with Captain Ikimaru, and were able to breach the soul shield membrane. We have to assume that they're all very strong and very dangerous if they have already caused this much trouble, the former head of the Uchiha clan explained without revealing everything else that he now knew, surprising both Ranji and Matsumoto. Do you really think the Ryoka are that much of a threat? Ranjika asked, to which Fugaku nodded. Of course, I'm sure that the officer from the 4th Division will now prove my point, Fugaku said. As if on cue, a man suddenly appeared at the door of the assembly room. 3rd seat of the 4th Division, Yasachika Ayamura, reporting, the man said. Before he could say anything else, however, Naruto made his presence known to the 3rd seat in 2 sentences. You're late. You better have a good reason for that, or you can kiss your sorry ass goodbye. Naruto roared in a clearly irritated tone as Renji attempted to hold him back. The former shinobi already had too little time to waste on these reports, and this officer had made it even worse. Ayamura's face paled as he tried not to provoke the lieutenant, accidentally or otherwise, any further. The 3rd seat hadn't seen the Uzumaki lose his temper personally, but had heard enough of the stories to know that he didn't want to get on Naruto's bad side, assuming he wasn't already there, that is. My apologies, Lieutenant Uzumaki. I was delayed due to some last-minute updates of great importance, Ayamura explained. Naruto, having calmed down thanks to Renji's intervention, raised an eyebrow upon hearing the last part of the 3rd-seated officer's explanation. What could be so damned important that could have forced us to wait 2 hours more than we were supposed to? Naruto thought to himself. He would get his answer soon enough, as Ayamura immediately began reading the report that was in his hands. 5 minutes later, the preliminary reports appeared to suggest that the entire 11th Division, with the exceptions of Captain Kenpachi Zaraki, Lieutenant Yuichiro Kusujishi, and the fourth-seated officer Zabuza Momochi, was completely wiped out, Ayamura said as he briefed the lieutenants on the part of the report regarding the events that had occurred today as of right now. The first few minutes of the report were little more than summary of what had happened to this morning which, needless to say, annoyed several of the officers. The mood changed, however, when Ayamura briefed the lieutenants on the defeats of the third-seated officer Ikiko Madarame and the fifth-seated officer Yumichika Ayasegawa, both of whom were from the 11th Division. The fact that two high-ranked officers were defeated by Ryoka was already a big shock. But an entire division being beaten? The reactions of some of the lieutenants to this bit news were not very surprising. That's impossible. Izurakira, the lieutenant of the 3rd Division, said. The 11th Division is gone? Renji asked in shock. The rage that he was suddenly feeling was understandable due to the fact that Ichigo was among the intruders and his close relations with his former division. How were these Ryoka able to do so much damage in just a few hours? Chojiro Sasakaibe, the 1st Division lieutenant, blurted out. The Shinigami, while also feeling very bad for all the members 11th Division who were now casualties, thought of the defeat of the division in a more critical light compared to their fellow lieutenants even if they didn't say those thoughts out loud. They charged headfirst into battle against an enemy without knowing who they were dealing with. What did they expect would happen? Fugaku asked rhetorically to himself. The 11th Division is even more poorly disciplined than I imagined. I guess this also proves that Naruto was right about Kurosaki, though, Minato thought to himself. Master Zabuza always said that the members of his division were all talk minus Captain Zaraki, Haku thought as he shook his head. He remembered that Zabuza had told him of his rather poor opinion of his own division. Honestly, did they really want to start a war that badly? Was the thought on Hiruzen's mind at that moment. And people call me an idiot. I almost feel sorry for Zabuza since he has to deal with those dumbats every day, Naruto thought as he sighed. After shaking off these thoughts they then continued listening to the report. As Ayamura finished his report the lieutenants went back to their respective barracks. Shinigami meeting place, undisclosed location within the Suriidai. Sometime in the evening. This secret chamber was a modest room by most standards. It was basically an semi-spherical interior with a 2-story high ceiling which was solid bedrock and a small stone urn in the center in which a fire been burning. Inside this room Naruto and the other 8 former shinobi stood in a circle. They had already finished discussing what had happened between Naruto and the intruders earlier that day as well as the plan of action they would now take. So that's the plan. Any questions? Naruto asked. As this meeting was his idea he was basically the one would be in charge of what the Shinigami planned to do now. When no one answered Minato decided to ask his son an important question of his own to ending the meeting so that they could all prepare for what they planned. Naruto, were you able to retrieve it? Minato asked. It was a pain to go through with it, and I'm sure Rukia is going to kill me when she finds out. But that creep Mayuri was able to help me obtain it. I made sure that he wouldn't say anything about what happened until this is all over. I'll give it to old man Yama at that point, Naruto said, getting a nod from his father. I guess that's it, then, Minato said, ending the meeting. With that everyone began to head towards the exit except Naruto. Wait, Shisui-sensei, can I ask you something before you go? Naruto asked. Shisui stopped in his tracks as Naruto waited for everyone to leave before he finally asked his mentor if he could help him with his Bankai training. Shisui was taken by surprise at this sudden turnaround. Though Naruto had been more than capable of learning Bankai for quite some time he had not even attempted it due to his father's request to wait, which Naruto had honored until that time. Are you sure want to do that, Naruto? I'm sure Minato is going to protest, Shisui said before Naruto interrupted him. Then I won't tell Dad that I'm trying to obtain my Bankai. You know that we're going to have use everything we have to stop that damned Aizen. You said that you discovered a secret training area near Sokaika Hill so we can use that place to train, Naruto said. Shisui sighed at this. The Uchiha guessed that, with Rukia now an unwilling pawn in Aizen's schemes, Naruto was now taking this matter very seriously and was not going to take no for an answer if he felt that this was something he had to do. I guess I can help you since it appears that you're not going to take no for an answer. Understand, however, that I'm only you do remember what my explanation about how one obtains his or her Bankai, right? Shisui reminded him, to which Naruto nodded. Very well then, I guess I'll help you out. We should wait until tomorrow, however, as you still have that lieutenant's meeting in the morning, Shisui pointed out. Naruto groaned at remembering that. Though his sensei was right in telling him to wait for that meeting, since there wouldn't be any more meetings, he was still getting tired of them. With all these useless meetings I'm amazed that everyone else is surprised that Ichigo and his friends have evaded capture, Naruto thought to himself as he and his sensei left the meeting chamber for the night. Secret training area, Sokaika Hill, the next day at noon. I can't believe a place this big has been hidden from everyone else right below the execution grounds. I wonder would go out of there, Naruto said, rather amazed at the size of the place. I sometimes wonder about the same thing, though I guess that's a moot point, Shisui said, getting a nod from his longtime student. In any case we need to get started, since that snake Aizen is probably going to make his move at any moment, Naruto said. He, like the rest of the former shinobi, knew that they were running out of time to stop Aizen's plans. The night and morning after the meeting had brought even more chaos to the Suriidai. There were many things that had happened in that time. Renji's defeat to Ichigo, and the authorization for the use of one's Zanpakuto made the tension in the Seriidii increase to unbearable levels. Then there was the Aizen's murder, which only made the anxiety in the air worse for every. While most of the other Shinigami were simply devastated by the loss of Aizen, especially the 5th Division 4th seated officer, Momo Hinamori, the former shinobi knew that this meant that Aizen had begun to make his move. Realizing that it wouldn't be long before they had to confront Aizen, his subordinates, Naruto immediately excused himself from the growing commotion at the scene of Aizen's murder and went to find Shinsuke. After Naruto informed the Uchiha what had happened, they both headed to the secret training room, flash-stepping as quickly as that they could make sure that no one was following them. Naruto shook off these thoughts before Shinsuke gave him one final warning. Before we begin, Naruto, I want that you understand this very well. Even though we still have 8 days until Rukia's execution, there's still a chance that Aizen might try to push up the date much sooner than that. So to be safe, I'm going to give you until this midnight to subjugate your Zanpakuto second longer. If you can't do it by that time, you'll just have to confront without a Bankai, Shinsuke said, making sure that his student understood what he said word for word. Naruto simply smirked in response to his sensei's warning. Then I'll just have to obtain my Bankai before then, Naruto replied confidently. Though he was rather surprised at how little time he would be given, Naruto knew that he was already pushing his and Rukia's luck enough as it is by taking this time to train, so he would just have to work with what time he had. Very well then, start by activating your Shurikai, Shinsuke said as he set a timer for midnight. Naruto nodded before he unsheathed his blade. Open the floodgates, kamikaze, Naruto said as he threw his Zanpakuto into the air, the tip of the pointed towards the ceiling. The blade then stopped midair as a small cloud suddenly formed above it. The cloud began growing in size and darkness until, after a few seconds, the cloud turned into a small thunderstorm a couple 100 yards wide. The moment the cloud reached this size, a very powerful lightning bolt struck Naruto's blade, which was still hovering in the air. After the flash of light dissipated, the blade fell into Naruto's grasp, revealing Kamikaze's Shurikai form. The blade was now a lightning bolt that had been compressed into the shape of a Chikuto sword, A/N, the type of sword that Sasuke wields in Naruto Shippuden, which was releasing small gusts of wind as Naruto held the blade. A small yellow tag was now attached to the base of the hilt with the kanjis for lightning, water, and wind written on it. Now what, Shinsuke-sensei? Naruto asked as he attempted to contain the sporadic release of wind from his blade. Have the spirit of Kamikaze materialize. I'll use my Ryatsu to help maintain it long enough for you to try to subjugate him, Shinsuke explained. Since Naruto could only keep the spirit of Kamikaze materialized for a few hours without aid, due to the fact that he had only learned to do so very recently, Shinsuke would keep the Zanpakuto spirit materialized until his student achieved Bankai or until midnight arrived. Whichever one came first. Naruto, without saying another word, focused his Ryatsu into his blade, which in turn generated more light until an explosion of lighting radiated across the training grounds. Had anyone been standing on the hill above the secret room, they would have felt a slight tremor caused by the powerful shockwave generated by the explosion. Thankfully for both Shinobigami, no one was close enough to so Kyakuhill notice anything out of the ordinary. As the light generated by the blast dissipated along the temporary loss of hearing caused by the subsequent thunderclap, both Naruto and Shinsuke could hear another person, presumably a male from the sound of his voice, called out to them. Took you long enough to finally do that, don't you think, Lil Naruto? The voice said in a clearly mocking tone. A giant vein popped out of Naruto's forehead when he heard his Zanpakuto's nickname for him. For once in your miserable life, Kamikaze, would you stop calling me that stupid nickname? Naruto said with great irritation as the spirit of Kamikaze became visible through the dissipating cloud of dust. It was a man who appeared to be in his late teens, who was around 6 feet tall with a lean build. He had spiky black hair that went well below his waist and was tied into a ponytail, as well as blood-red eyes with black slits due to the partial influence of Kurama's power. Kamikaze wore what could only be described as a coat of lighting shaped into the form of the samurai-like armor that was once used by many shinobi before the founding of the shinobi villages. Along with this armor, the Zanpakuto wore a black undershirt with sleeves that reached below his elbows, black pants that went to the middle of his shins, black shinobi sandals, a blood-red shinobi headband that had metal plate with the stylized leaf symbol of Konoha emblazoned on the metal, and a red sash tied around his waist. He held a blade in his right hand that was basically the pure lighting Chikuto that Naruto would wield when using his Shurikai, except this one was a few inches shorter than that version, and instead of a tag attached to the bottom of the hilt, a thin rope, made out of pure lighting, was attached. The rope connected the sword to Kamikaze's sash, and, with the rope being made of lightning, it could expand to whatever length the Zanpakuto spirit desired. As Naruto fumed at Kamikaze's insult, the Zanpakuto simply flashed a smile at his partner's irritation. But I like calling you that. It lets me push your buttons all the more easily, Lil Naruto, Kamikaze said in response to the lieutenant's annoyance. Naruto, not surprisingly, got even more steamed at his Zanpakuto's mannerisms. Unlike the Zanpakuto spirits of some of Shinigami, the other Kamikaze didn't have any issues with Naruto, or even Kurama for that matter, but the Zanpakuto did enjoy annoying the hell out of both the Biju and his Jinchuriki just to get an amusing reaction from the two. Shinsuke decided to refocus Naruto's attention on the task at hand before the Uzumaki tried to kill his own Zanpakuto, and end his life as a Shinigami in the process. Enough of this nonsense, the both of you, Shursui demanded, getting the attention of both Naruto and Kamikaze before turning his attention to the Zanpakuto. Now then, Kamikaze, based on your little conversation with Naruto, it's obvious that you already know why you're here and that you've overheard what has been said, so I won't ask. Once I stabilize your materialization, I assume that you can begin right away? Shursui asked the manifested Zanpakuto. Yep, was the only reply Kamikaze gave. As soon as the Zanpakuto said that, Shursui shunpoed in front of the Zanpakuto and placed his hand on the manifested spirit's chest and began to channel some of his Ryatsu into him until, after a minute or two, the Uchiha managed to completely stabilize the manifestation of the Zanpakuto. Once Shursui finished, the manifested Kamikaze placed his left palm into the ground, which apparently caused hundreds of blades, in the form of the spirit's Shurikai, to emerge. All of these blades were stuck in the ground in a vertical position as Kamikaze picked one of them up, as the blade and the rope it was attached to had suddenly vanished. Now then, Naruto, your challenge is very simple. One of these blades is the true me and is the only one that can defeat me. You have to find it before I can kill you, since I'll attacking you the whole time entire, or before your time runs out, and defeat me with it. Oh, and every time you pick up the wrong blade there's a nasty surprise that'll await you, Kamikaze explained. The last part of the Zanpakuto's explanation made Naruto shudder, as his Zanpakuto had a slightly dark sense of humor, and he wasn't very shy about it. Naruto reached for the closest blade to him with a great deal of anxiety, and for good reason, because the moment he made contact with the blade's hilt he was zapped but goodbye said blade before it disappeared. After a couple of seconds Naruto regained feeling in his right hand, at which point he turned to glare at the smiling Kamikaze. You are a cruel man, you know that? Naruto asked rhetorically. Now, Lil Naruto, being a critic isn't going to help you get Bankai any sooner, Kamikaze said, which provoked his wielder even further. After Naruto attempted to grab another blade, and getting zapped as a result, he turned to face his Zanpakuto just as he dodged his Zanpakuto's first attack. When I get my hands on the true you, you're so dead, Kamikaze, Naruto declared as he continued his efforts to find the true Kamikaze. A/N. I'm going to skip this fight since it would take too long for me to write, especially due to the nature of this chapter. Almost 6 hours later, which he managed to do, over 4 hours after the training had begun. It had not been an easy task, of course, and the fact that he had to find the correct blade while the manifested Kamikaze was continuously attacking him made the task more daunting. Eventually, however, Naruto found the blade that was the true form of Kamikaze and, after fighting the manifested Zanpakuto spirit for another grueling hour, the Uzumaki managed to defeat Kamikaze using a combination of swordsmanship, a combination various Kido spells, and the nine-tailed chakra mode to finally subjugate Kamikaze and obtain his Bankai. After Kamikaze took half an hour to explain the nature of his Bankai to Naruto, the Shinobigami finally undid his Zanpakuto's manifestation. With another 2 hours before the next scheduled lieutenant's meeting, he used the special hot spring located within the training area to heal himself, since the training he'd just undergone left him too seriously injured for even Kurama to heal his wounds quickly without any aid. As Naruto quickly got himself dressed in another Shihakusho, he turned to Shursui, who had just woken up from a short nap he had taken while waiting for his student. Did you sense those approaching Ryatsus, sensei? Naruto asked, to which the Uchiha nodded. Yeah, and they're clearly not members of the Godai 13 whom I'm aware of. Based on the huge amounts of Ryatsu, these two must be with the intruders, Shursui reasoned. Naruto smirked at this. Oh, they definitely are, Shursui-sensei. After all, I fought one of those two intruders earlier, Naruto said just as the sources of the Ryatsu appeared. One of them was a dark-skinned and woman who was a little over 5 feet tall with a slender figure, golden-colored eyes that were cat-like in appearance, and long purple hair that she kept in a ponytail. She wore an orange shirt, under which she wore what appeared to be a black undershirt, black stretch pants, light brown shoes and a pale brown sash that she wore around her waist. The woman was not the one who had Naruto's attention, however. It was the other person who the woman was carrying on her shoulder, an unconscious and badly injured Ichigo. While Naruto stood there, looking at Ichigo's condition in shock, Shursui focused his attention on the woman. You must be one of the intruders, correct? The Uchiha asked, to which the woman nodded in reply. Shursui raised an eyebrow at this. Why did you come to this place if there are two potential enemies already here? With your level of power, I'm sure you would have detected us, he asked with curiosity. Even though Shursui could tell that this woman was easily at the level of a captain based on her Ryatsu, despite her efforts to hide it, the Uchiha thought that this woman would not come here when there were two potential threats in the area. While Shursui, Naruto, and the other Shinobigami intended to help with Rukia's rescue, there was no way she could have known about that, or so Shursui thought. The woman simply smirked. Considering the fact that you two haven't attacked me yet, I'm pretty sure that's not the case, especially since you Shinobigami plan to rescue Rukia as well. Naruto Uzumaki and Shursui Uchiha, the woman rhetorically asked in a teasing tone. Both Shursui and Naruto couldn't believe what this woman just said. She not only knew their names, she also knew about their group's plan. Naruto did what most Shinigami would have probably expected the Uzumaki to do in that situation. He unleashed a massive barrage of questions upon the mysterious woman. How did you know who we are and what we're planning? Who the hell are you? Why are you here? What are you doing carrying Ichigo on your shoulder? And why does he look like he got into a fight with the eye patch psycho? Naruto asked A/N. If you can't figure it out, that's the nickname Naruto uses to refer to Kenpachi Zaraki, unaware of just how on the mark he actually was. Shirsue's eyes widened upon hearing his student's last question, but for a very different reason than one might expect. So that boy she's carrying on her shoulder is Ichigo Kurosaki. No wonder Naruto took an interest in him with all that ryatsu that he has. It's amazing that he's just a human, the Uchiha thought to himself as the women simply smiked at Naruto's questioning. Well, it'll take a while to explain it all to you, so I'll start off with an introduction. My name is Yoruichi Shihoin, the now named Yoruichi said. Shinobigami meeting place. The following night, Naruto was in the hideout with the rest of the former shinobi discussing the furthering of their plans to save Rukia recent and to stop Aizen, as well as the recent turn of events. Needless to say, it was a very long turn. The first, and the most important, was Naruto and Shirsue's talk with the intruder named Yoruichi, who explained the situation regarding Ichigo and 13 the other intruders. Ichigo had tried to break Rukia out of the Senzaku, but Yoruichi was forced to render him unconscious and bring him to the secret training ground after Byakuya and Yukitake arrived at the holding cell. Yoruichi then told the two former shinobi that she intended to train Ichigo in order to have him obtain his own Bankai in order to save Rukia. Neither shinobi really questioned the possibility, since the orange-haired Shinigami had the necessary ryatsu to achieve that level. Though she left a few of Naruto's questions unanswered, they really didn't have that time to receive the answers for them due to the lieutenant's meeting due to begin an hour from then. The three Shinigami decided to simply focus on their individual rescue efforts for the time being. After exiting the training area, Naruto made a beeline to the lieutenant's meeting, which he got to with 10 minutes to spare. After the meeting, which was late at night, Naruto and the other Shinobigami headed to their secret meeting place. Does everyone know what to do? Naruto asked, referring to the various jobs that he and the other former shinobi were going to do as part of their plans to save Rukia. The others nodded in response. Despite having to adjust their plans to the situation, the changes weren't very drastic, so they were implemented very quickly. Naruto sighed in relief at this, since he really didn't have time for setbacks. The fact that Rukia's execution had been moved to the following, and the fact that the young lieutenant had to juggle around with 3 different rescue attempts, the Shinobigami, the intruders, and both captains Yukitake and Kairaku were all trying to save Rukia's life, meant that he had little time for setbacks. All then, let's get some rest. The fight begins tomorrow, Naruto declared. As the former shinobi dispersed, he realized that tomorrow was going to be a very long day. Yamamoto Genryusai stared at Rukia as she stood on top of the platform, all tied up for her execution. Release the Sokayaku, he ordered. Yes, sir. The Kido Corps surrounded the Sokayaku and clasped their hands together in a form of a hand seal. The ropes that were attached to the poles on the ground slowly began to come apart, eventually snapping. They began to circle the Sokayaku lazily, growing faster with each passing second until the ropes bounding the halberd unwound and sped towards the ground, stabbing into it. Rukia stared up at the Sokayaku as she thought back to when she and Jin had their little exchange at the bridge. Even though Ikamaru troubled my heart at that moment, little by little, my peace is returning. But is this because of the Captain Commander's promise? Or perhaps it's because when Nisama saw me disturbed, clinging shamefully to life, he shut me out without even a hint of doubt. Thank you so much, Nisama, said Rukia quietly as 3 cubes surfaced from the platform. The rope bounding Rukia's hands together suddenly faded away, and the 3 cubes placed themselves in front of Rukia's hands and feet. Rukia started to float up to the scaffold, and the halberd suddenly erupted into flames, a pillar of fire surrounding it, and dissipating to reveal a gigantic phoenix at least 2 to 3 times the size of the colossal scaffold. Kikoo, said the Captain Commander as he stared up at the majestic phoenix. The true form of the Sokayaku blade, and the final enforcer of the death penalty. Once he pierces the criminal, the death penalty will be over. As the captains and the other bystanders stood in awe of Kikoo, Rukia's eyes grew wide as she saw the phoenix. The majestic Sokayaku reared its neck and screeched, spreading out its wings as it prepared to charge. Rukia bowed her head as it sped at her, finally at peace. Meanwhile, Yukitake Taishu, aren't you finished yet? Naruto pranced around. He said this, getting more and more impatient by the minute. Yukitake frowned at this. Patience, Naruto Fukutechu. These kinds of things take time. He suddenly clapped his hands together a few seconds later as a cloud of smoke seeped out behind the closed doors. It's finally finished. Naruto clenched his hands into a tight fist and rushed out the door. I'm going on ahead, he yelled as he sped towards Sokayaku Hill. I'll save Rukia, so get over to Sokayaku Hill with the shield as soon as possible. And Naruto Fukutechu, Yukitake called out as he rushed to open the sealed artifact. Wait for me. Sokayaku Hill, Suriidai, Soul Society. Huh? Rukia opened her eyes, confused by the fact that she hadn't been pierced by the Sokayaku yet. What's going on here? Are you alright, Rukia? Her eyes widened as she recognized the voice. She slowly lifted her head to see an orange-haired figure standing in front of her, amazingly blocking the gigantic phoenix with his Zanpakuto using just one hand. Ichigo? Is that you, Ichigo? Ichigo looked back and grinned at Rukia. Yeah, it's me. I've come to save you, Rukia, he said coolly. Rukia's lips started to tremble, and she bowed her head, tears welling up in her eyes. Why, you idiot, I told you not to rescue me. Ichigo looked confused. Huh? Rukia's head shot up, and Ichigo raised an eyebrow as she scowled at him comically. You idiot! I told you not to come and rescue me. Why did you come to rescue me? Oi! Raged Ichigo. What do you mean, why did you come to rescue me? You're supposed to thank me, you idiot. Rukia stuck out her bottom lip as she turned her head away. Humph. I never asked you to. Ichigo scowled at her. Why, you little dash, Ichigo. Rukia! Ichigo and Rukia looked down to see Naruto speeding towards them as he waved at them. Oi, Naruto! Yelled Ichigo as he waved back at him using his free hand. It's about time you came. Naruto activated Kurama's shroud and used his chakra arms to hoist himself up on the scaffold, releasing the mode right after. What took you so long? Asked Ichigo. I was with Yukitake Taishu, Naruto responded. He looked around the area, a frustrated look on his face. Just where is he? Whoa! Naruto had snapped around as he was Ichigo's stumble, the Sokaiku withdrawing for a second strike. Watch out, Ichigo! Warned Naruto. That thing has been said to power of 1 million Zanpakutos. You won't survive the next attack. Ichigo grimaced as he glared at the phoenix, a determined look on his face. Che! This is nothing. I got this, Naruto. Suifeng narrowed her eyes as she stared at Ichigo. Who is that guy? The Sokaiku is said to contain the offensive and defensive abilities of 1 million Zanpakutos, and yet this kid was able to hold it back with just one hand? What kind of power is this? Her eyes suddenly widened in shock as a velvet-colored rope wrapped itself around the charging phoenix's neck, halting its attack. The golden pole attached to the end of the rope slammed into the ground, holding the phoenix in place. Yukitake Jushiri? Said Suifeng to herself. Shunsui suddenly appeared in front of the pole, placing his hand on it to stabilize it. Yo, Yukitake! You sure like to make people wait, don't ya? I'm sorry, replied Yukitake as he glanced over at Shunsui. The release took me a while, but now we're good to go. Suifeng clenched her teeth in frustration as she recognized the crest on the shield. That's the Shihoin clan seal. Shunsui and Yukitake both drew their Zanpakutos and slammed the blade into the shield, activating it. The velvet-colored rope that was binding the Sokaiku began to glow, and the flame quickly traveled up the rope towards the trapped phoenix. Boom! The Sokaiku exploded as the Shihoin shield activated, and large chunks of fire rained down on the people below. Impossible! Thought Suifeng to herself as she shielded her face with her arms. Ichigo performed a backflip and landed on the scaffold. Rukia looked up at him. Wait, Ichigo! What are you doing? Just shut up and watch, said Ichigo as he grabbed the piece of cloth that was attached to Zangetsu. He threw his Zanpakuto up into the air and started to twirl it in the air, spinning it faster and faster until it was just a blur. He suddenly yanked at the cloth and grabbed the hilt of the oversized katana, holding it blade down. His eyes flared as it turned clear blue, and a massive burst of Ryatsu enveloped Ichigo, powering him up. He slammed the point of Zangetsu into the snarode, and it began to glow blue, the bright blue light blinding everyone in the area. Thud! A giant of dust enveloped the whole entire area as the scaffold exploded. It slowly dissipated to reveal the main part of the scaffold completely destroyed. You never shut up about how I shouldn't rescue you and how I should just go home. I told you, didn't I? Your opinions are just gonna keep getting ignored, said Ichigo as he held Rukia. Rukia gave Ichigo a sad smile. Yeah, Aizen looked up at the scaffold, a look of disbelief on her face. I am possible the Sokaiku stand is, or Ichigo. Ichigo looked ahead to see Renji drop the unconscious body of a Kido Corps member on the ground, his Zanpakuto in his hand. What? Rukia stared at him, her eyes wide. A huge smile slowly spread across her face. Renji! Thank goodness you're alive, Renji. Alright, said Ichigo lazily. He slowly lifted Rukia into the air and glanced over at Renji. Get ready, Renji, Rukia blinked. Huh? She looked up Ichigo. Wait, Ichigo. What are you going to do? Renji's face turned blue as he realized what Ichigo was going to do. Wait, hey! You aren't planning to. Take her! Yelled Ichigo as he threw Rukia at Renji like a football. Ah! Screamed Rukia as she flew towards Renji. Why you baka? Screamed Renji as she crashed into him. Oi you baka! Scolded Naruto as he smacked Ichigo across the head. What the hell was that for? Ichigo rubbed the back of his head as he pouted. Well, I just thought that it was a cool thing to do at the moment. You baka! Naruto repeated. You're just lucky she wasn't hurt, or I'd beat the crap out of you. He shook his head and pulled a paper bomb out of his uniform. Get ready! He said, throwing the paper bomb on the broken scaffold. Meanwhile, in various locations throughout Tsurayai, Kushina, Mikoto, and Fugaka all looked up at Sokaiku Hill as they saw a mini explosion. They all nodded simultaneously and grabbed a smoke bomb from their uniforms, throwing them on the ground, after which they flash-stepped towards the hill where Naruto was at. The Shinigamis that were spread throughout Tsurayai looked at the 4 giant pillars of smoke that rose up from 4 various locations, all of them confused as to what they were. Let's go and check it out, said a random Shinigami, calling out to his comrades as he rushed towards a random pillar of smoke. They're gone, Ichigo stated as he watched Renji run through the area with Rukia in his arms. Yeah, Naruto looked down and saw Hiruzen and Haku amidst the crowd of witnesses that were gathered on the hill. Naruto suddenly seemed to disappear as he flash-stepped to their side. Hey Gigi, Haku, Naruto Fukutechu! Exclaimed Haku. There's no time, said Naruto, shaking his head. I need you and Gigi to go after Renji and Rukia and make sure that they're okay. Hiruzen nodded. Got it, he replied before he flash-stepped away. Haku followed him closely behind. Sui Feng narrowed her eyes as she glared at her vice-captain flash-stepping away. Haku, you scum, I'll make sure to destroy you with my own thud. What? Exclaimed Sui Feng as she went speeding past the other Shinigamis and off the cliff. Who are you scum? The unknown masked figure who had tackled Sui Feng remained silent as she continued to hold tight onto her. Sui Feng narrowed her eyes as she grabbed the assailant's arm. I asked you who you were? She roared as she threw him over her shoulders. The figure suddenly disappeared and reappeared behind a surprised Sui Feng, kicking her in the back and sending her flying into a tree. Sui Feng balanced herself in midair and grabbed a branch of the tree, flipping over and landing on the branch safely. She narrowed her eyes as she stared at the figure. There's only one person in all of Soul Society that could move that fast. Shihoin Yoruichi. Spat Sui Feng as she glared at the figure. Heh, it looks like you recognized me, Sui Feng. I see, said Sui Feng as she smirked at her. Just because you've been gone a long time doesn't necessarily mean that you've raised your skills. Yoruichi removed her mask and smiled at her. It looks like your skills have dulled quite a bit, on the other hand. Don't be so full of yourself, said Sui Feng, a tone of danger in her voice. When will you stop thinking that you're so better than us? Both the Secret Mobile Corps and the Correction Corps are under my control now. Yoruichi's eyes grew wide as Sui Feng drew her Zanpakuto. Your days are numbered, stated Sui Feng as she slammed the point of her katana into the tree. Shihoin Yoruichi. Yoruichi blinked as 20 members of the Secret Mobile Corps suddenly surrounded her. Now let's see. Back in Sokayaka Hill, Shunsui tipped his hat as he grinned. Well, he said as he grabbed Yukitake by the hem of his captain's uniform. I guess that it's time to disappear, huh? Yukitake's eyes grew wide. Wait, what? Let's go! Exclaimed Shunsui as he sped towards the edge of the cliff, dragging his fellow captain along with him. Yamamoto Genryosai watched as they jumped off of the cliff, his face unreadable. Abarai Fukutechu, please stop! Called out Aizen as she and Sasuke Chojiro ran after him. Renji, however, ignored her and kept on moving forward. Whoa! Aizen and Chojiro stopped as they felt something in front of them, and Renji looked back and grinned. Ichigo suddenly appeared in front of them, his cloak flapping behind him. Naruto appeared by his side, his Zanpakuto in his hand. I'm afraid that I can't let you two pass, stated Ichigo as he stared hard at them. Run, Itegimo! Cried out Aizen as she unsheathed her Zanpakuto. Her katana began to glow, and the blades slowly turned much more thin as two smaller and thinner blades protruded from either side of the hilt at a 45-degree angle. Pierce, Ganryamaru! Said Chojiro as he raised his Zanpakuto up to his face. The blade began to glow, and it slowly thinned out into a rapier-like sword. What? Aizen watched as Ichigo slammed the point of his Zanpakuto into the ground and quickly dispatched Chojiro with a simple uppercut to the jaw. Impossible! He managed to defeat Sasuke Fukutechu without even using his Zanpakuto? Ichigo turned to Aizen and flickered to her side, kneeing her in the stomach before she could even react. Ugh! Aizen fell on the ground, and she stared up at Ichigo before she blacked out. He's way too strong for us, just who is he? Ichigo felt something speeding towards him and grabbed his Zanpakuto, swiftly turning around to meet Kichiki Byakuya's charge head-on, their Zanpakutos clashing together. As Ichigo glared at him, his eyes narrowed. I can see you, Kichiki Byakuya, said Ichigo calmly. Byakuya simply blinked, his face immobile. Kurosaki Ichigo, do not be so arrogant. Just because you were barely able to match my speed does not mean that you are a match for me. Naruto glanced at the two unconscious vice-captains and nodded. Well, I'm off then, Ichigo. Ichigo looked surprised. What? You're going, Naruto? Naruto grinned at him. I trust you, Ichigo. You can defeat Byakuya. Ichigo's eyes widened in shock as Naruto said this. I'm going to stop this madness once and for all, said Naruto as he turned around to leave. You take care of things here, Ichigo. Ichigo smiled as he bent his head. You got it. He lifted his head to lock eyes with the captain of the 6th Division. I'll definitely beat him. Naruto stayed still for a brief second before sighing. Let's finish this, he said, and with that, he disappeared. Naruto flew past a column of buildings, quickly spinning around on his feet and flash-stepping past the giant wall and speeding towards the Central 46 compound as fast as he could. I'm sure that you were right about me having the fastest flash step in all of Soul Society, Tosen. If what I'm worried about is right, I'm gonna need it. Meanwhile, let's move. Zabuza, Yachiru, Chad, Ishida, Orihime, and Ganju ran past a group of Shinigamis as Zabuza and Yachiru led the group to Sokayaka Hill. Wait, stop! Ordered Zabuza as he skidded to a halt. What is it, Zabuza-san? Asked Orihime. Zabuza looked down at the ground. I want you guys to stay here. He glanced back at the tiny pink-haired vice captain who was staring up at him. Yuichiro Fukutechu, please stay here with the others. I'll go up to Sokaya Hill myself and get rid of any threats myself. Yuichiro gave the fourth seat a huge smile. Sure thing, Momo-chan. Oriheim and the others snickered at this. Momo-chan, snickered Ishida. He quickly fell silent and straightened up as Zabuza glared at him. Just kidding, Zabuza-san. He nodded at Yuichiro. I'm off. Oriheim and the others excluding Yuichiro of course eyes widened in surprise as Zabuza suddenly disappeared using flash step. So fast stuttered Oriheim. Central 46 Compound, Suriidii, Soul Society. Minato and Shursui flash stepped to the front of the Central 46 Compound, looking around to see if there was anyone around. Well, the outside's empty, observed Shursui. He turned around to look at Minato. What now, Minato Fukutechu? There's not time to waste, said Minato as he ran towards the door. I have a bad feeling about something. Catch up when you can. And with that, he disappeared. Hinamori threw herself into her captain's arms, tears leaking out of her eyes as she looked up at him. Aizen Taishu, her lips started to tremble as she looked down, and she started to sob, unable to help herself. Aizen gave Hinamori a genuine smile as she sobbed into his arms. There, Hinamori. Everything will be fine. Aizen Taishu sobbed Hinamori. I am so glad that while you're okay busy crying, she didn't notice her captain pull his Zanpakuto out of its sheath. Farewell, Hinamori, whispered Aizen, his blade speeding towards Hinamori's heart. What? Aizen's eyes grew wide as Minato suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his sword with his own. Minato Fukutechu, said Aizen, his usual fake smile on his face. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, Aizen Taishu, Minato responded, his eyes narrowed. You tried to kill your fourth seat? I was trying to save her from the agony of having to live without me, stated Aizen, spreading his arms out wide. It's my way of helping her out. What else would you have me do, Minato Fukutechu? Wait, said Hinamori as she stared up at Aizen, her eyes wide. What's going on here, Aizen Taishu? Nothing, Hinamori. Minato looked down at her and gave her a gently look. It's nothing that you need to worry about just yet, Hinamori looked at him. And Namikaze Fukutechu? Sleep, whispered Minato, tapping Hinamori's head gently with his fingers. Her eyes started to droop, and she fell down into a kneeling position, her eyes fluttering close. Aizen Taishu, very impressive, Minato Fukutechu, said Aizen. Even without an incantation, Minato gently placed the unconscious Hinamori on the floor and looked up at Aizen. Minato and Aizen looked around to see Shursui, Hitsugaya Toshiro, and his vice-captain Matsumoto Ranjika crashing through the door. Hitsugaya Taishu! Exclaimed Minato, Namikaze Fukutechu. Hitsugaya looked at Aizen, and then at the sleeping Hinamori on the floor. Momo, just what the hell's going on here? Do not worry, Hitsugaya Taishu. I just put her to sleep for a while, explained Minato as he kept his eyes on Aizen. I just caught Aizen trying to stab her in the heart, and I was barely able to stop him. Aizen Hitsugaya glared at him, his eyes turning icy blue. I'll kill you for T-. No, Hitsugaya Taishu, said Minato, holding his arm out in front of the captain of the 10th Division. Please take Hinamori and get out of here. Like hell we will. Hitsugaya glared at Minato. I don't exactly know what's going on here, but please. Hitsugaya's eyes grew wide for a brief second before softening. Hitsugaya Taishu, let's leave this to them, said Ranjika softly, putting her hand on his shoulders. We should get Hinamori out of here. Hitsugaya closed his eyes. Namikaze Fukutechu, I'm counting on you, Minato nodded. Understood. Now please leave this to me and Shursui. His eyes suddenly grew hard as he looked down at the floor. We'll take of Aizen Taishu once and for all. Hitsugaya nodded and scooped Hinamori into his arms, flash stepping away with Ranjiku. As soon as they disappeared, Minato and Shursui turned to face Aizen. Why are you willing to confront your own captain so easily, Minato Fukutechu? Don't you feel any regret or guilt for what you're about to do? Minato stared at his captain, his gaze unwavering. I've never trusted you. Even when I first met you, I knew that there was something off about you. I also knew that you were aware of my suspicions about you this whole time, so don't try and play any games with me. I was always ready to fight you if the time ever came. I had always hoped that I was wrong, but it seems that my suspicions were correct. Aizen smiled at this. I see. We will defeat you, Aizen Sosuke, said Minato, a determined look on his face. He turned to Shursui and nodded. Shursui slowly drew his Zanpakuto from its sheath, a slight grin on his face. You got that right, said Shursui. Minato and Shursui both pointed their Zanpakutos at Aizen, calling out their respective Shurikai commands. Flash, Hiration, protect from the shadows, Karasu no Hansha. Flash, Hiration, protect from the shadows, Karusa no Hansha. As Minato and Shursui's Zanpakutos began to glow, Minato's began to shrink down in size dramatically, the middle of the katana splitting into two. Once the Zanpakuto finished transforming, Minato was seen holding two kunais that were similar to the Hiration kunais that he had used in the ninja world, but the blades on these were much more edged and defined, giving it an almost strange trident-like appearance. A yellow-white current of electricity ran through both blades. The kunai had white metallic blades, and the handles were made of some kind of sleek black wood with the kanji for thunder written vertically on the handles in white. Shursui's zanpakuto, however, stayed the same in size. Instead of the shape of the blade gained a clear transparent polish that gave it the appearance of a mirror. The tsuba remained the same shape as well, but it seemed to house what seemed to be a crow's eye in the center of the tsuba, although Aizen couldn't tell as it closed right on materialization. The hilt turned into a midnight blue color, and at the end of the pommel was a couple of crow's feathers that was somehow attached to it. Aizen's eyes widened slightly as he was Shursui's zanpakuto in Shurkai form. "I must say that I'm surprised to see your zanpakuto's true form, Shursui-san," he said with a slight chuckle. "I thought that you hadn't shown it to anyone, and yet here it is." Minato, who had been staring silently at the floor, slowly lifted his eyes to stare at Aizen, slowly lifting his right kunai as well and pointing it at Aizen. "Aizen Sosuke, I'm afraid that we have to take you out right here and now." Aizen smiled as he spread his arms out wide as if he was embracing Minato's threat. "I'm afraid that it might not be as easy as you two might think it is, Minato Fukutechu, but feel free to try nonetheless. Let's end this," shouted Shursui as he charged at him, Minato following closely behind. "Wait, Shursui," ordered Minato as he skidded to a halt. He grabbed Shursui's shoulder and motioned to the door. "Don't you hear anything outside?" Shursui narrowed his eyes as he concentrated on the outside of the building. "It sounds like there's some fighting going on outside, but what dash?" Minato and Shursui ducked as a figure came flying through the door, his sword barely missing the tips of their heads by a millimeter. Aizen glanced sideways at the figure as she landed by his side. "Oh, so you're here." Minato glanced at the figure as he straightened up, his eyes narrowing as he saw him. "Ikemara Jin," said Minato slowly. "So another traitor appears," stated Shursui as he stared at Jin calmly. "It seems that we were right about you after all. You were with Aizen this whole time, weren't you?" Jin tilted his head to the side as he stared at Minato and Shursui with his snake-like stare. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Shursui-san," he said, his seemingly permanent grin plastered on his face. "I was just strolling through Suriidai when I heard some shouting coming from this direction, so I thought that I'd come by and see what's up." "Ikemara Jin," growled Minato. "You were always the suspicious one, even more than Aizen, I might add." "I'm not surprised at all." "Jin, what happened?" asked Aizen, his eyes still focused on Minato and Shursui. Jin's grin grew even bigger. "He's gotten even stronger, Aizen Taishu," he said in his usual mocking tone. "Seems like we need to watch ourselves around him, am I right?" Thud. The area near the door exploded as Naruto came speeding into the building, his Shurkai activated and cloaked in Kurama's shroud. "And speak of the devil," said Jin as he stared at Naruto. Minato glanced at his son before turning his gaze back to Aizen. "As late as always, huh, Naruto?" Naruto maintained a cool look as he glanced at his father. "Yukite Taisha took too long releasing the Shihoin shield," he stated casually. "It wasn't my fault, you know. Anyways, no one's hurt or killed, so no worries." He turned his gaze to Aizen, the traitorous captain staring calmly at him. "Now," Aizen Naruto clenched his free hand into a fist as he glared at him. "Just what are you after?" Aizen smiled at Naruto and whispered something as he sheathed his zanpakuto, surprising everyone in the room with the exception of Jin. "What do I want, Uzumaki-kun?" "That's a very good question indeed. Just what do I want? Money? Power? Maybe all of Soul Society perhaps?" "Stop playing games and answer me," demanded Naruto. Aizen chuckled softly. "Very well, what I want is Kichiki Rukia." Naruto's eyes widened in shock. "Our Rukia? Just what the hell are you talking about? If you wanted her so badly, you would have gone after her when she was about to be executed." Aizen closed his eyes and shook his head. "You're not understanding my point here, Uzumaki-kun. You and your form shinobis have constantly hindered my plans for quite some time. After I dispose of you and your tiresome comrades, my plan is to acquire a certain item which was placed inside of your friend Kichiki Rukia's soul. I plan to take back what belongs to me, and after that, I will dispose of the pawn." Naruto growled at this. "With my own 2 hands." Naruto looked at the floor, his face unreadable. "What did you call her?" He blinked. "Tell me, Aizen. What did you just call Rukia?" Aizen smiled at this. "I called her a pawn. Is there a problem?" Naruto bared his teeth as he looked up at Aizen, his eyes wide and full of malice. "Never call her that again, I'll kill you." Aizen's smile grew even bigger as he stared at Naruto, looking like he was enjoying tormenting him. "Well, I wonder how you'll manage to do that, Uzumaki-kun." Naruto closed his eyes as he began to feel his rage surge up from inside of him. "I'll do it. I'll dash." Naruto, a replica of Konoha, Naruto's mind. Naruto's eyes flew open as he heard Kamikaze's voice. He looked around to find himself inside of his mind once more, which was basically an exact replica of Konoha, he himself being on the top of the Hokage's monument. Konoha was surrounded by a gigantic unmoving hurricane-like storm, and the storm had blocked out the earth as well as the sky. The sky was dark gray, and the thunder rolled from their home above the sky. Naruto closed his eyes and tilted his face towards the sky, breathing in the ice-cold air, as he felt the gentle beating of the rain against his face. Kamikaze appeared next to Naruto, placed his hand on his shoulder. "Are you calm now, Naruto?" asked Kamikaze, his voice surprisingly serious for once. "Can't you see that Aizen's just trying to get you worked up?" Kamikaze's grip on his shoulder tightened as he said this. Naruto opened his eyes and glanced sideways at his Zanpakuto's spirit, glaring at him. "I know that, Kamikaze. I don't need you to dash." Naruto suddenly stopped talking as he felt something poking his neck. He rolled his eyes down to find the point Kamikaze's blade gently pressing his neck. "If you truly want to protect your friends and comrades, then all you need to do is keep your rage under control. You're stronger than him, Naruto, and you're not alone." Naruto's eyes grew wide as Kamikaze said this. "You have me, Kurama, your fellow Shinobigamis, and even the Ryokas that came to save Rukia. As long as you don't give in to Aizen's attempts to manipulate you, you can succeed." Kurama, who was trying to rest on the ground behind them, snorted. "Don't mind me, just trying to take a nap over here." Naruto remained silent for a few moments. "Kamikaze, you," he looked up and gave his Zanpakuto spirit a huge grin. "Despite taunting me all the time, you've always been with me and Kurama to give us a hand, haven't you? I guess that even someone as goofy and crazy as you has their moments." Kamikaze sniffed at this. "Everyone has to be serious at time, even someone like me." Naruto looked down at the ground and smiled. "I guess that I should have expected this from my Zanpakuto." Back in the real world, Naruto opened his eyes and stared at the now surprised Aizen, a huge grin on his face. "I wonder what happened to him," thought Aizen to himself as he stared at the changed boy. Minato smiled as he glanced sideways at his son. "I wonder if he and his Zanpakuto managed to have a talk." Naruto looked around and noticed something peculiar. "Wait a second, that conversation took almost 20 minutes, but it feels like only a couple of seconds had passed here." "Well, I'm waiting, Uzumaki-kun," said Aizen. Naruto raised his sword and got into a fighting position, a serious look on his face. "I'll make sure that you don't get into my head again, and I'll definitely make sure that you never get your hands on the item that's inside of Rukia." The smile on Aizen's face disappeared. "You shouldn't get so full of yourself," he said, his eyes narrowed. "Fear not, Uzumaki-kun. I will soon show you the error of what you just said." Shursui, who had slowly backed up so that he was almost directly behind Minato, raised his Zanpakuto to his face, his eyes closed. "Karasu no Tsuruya," he whispered quietly, opening his eyes to reveal his Sharingan. "Sokaika Hill, Tsuruyaidai, Soul Society, Abarai Fukutechu." Renji stopped and turned around to see Haku and Hiruzen running up to them. "Haku Fukutechu. Hiruzen Fukutechu. Good to see you're still not tired out," said Hiruzen as glanced over Renji. "Are you hurt anywhere?" Renji grinned. "Not really. I'm still sore from my battle with Kachiki Taishu, but other than that I'm good to go." Hiruzen nodded. "Very well then. Haku, go ahead and lead the way. I'll stay in the back in case anyone tries to intercept us along the way." Haku nodded and sprung forward. "Let's go," he said as he sped across the plain. Renji and the others followed closely behind. After 20 or so minutes of running, Renji glanced behind at Hiruzen. "So, Hiruzen Fukutechu," he started. "What's all of this about?" Hiruzen closed his eyes for a brief second before answering. "Aizen Sosuke has betrayed Soul Society," he said bluntly. Renji and Rukia's eyes widened in shock. "What?" exclaimed Renji. "Aizen Taishu a traitor? Impossible." Haku shook his head. "I'm afraid that it's true. It seems that he was after a certain item, and apparently it had something to do with your execution, Rukia." Rukia pointed to herself. "And me?" "Yes," said Haku. "He was aiming for you to be killed so that he could somehow use that to get the item that he wanted." Renji clenched his teeth. "That lousy piece of... that scumbag. That traitor. I'll kill him and all of his subordinates for what they've done." Hiruzen reached out and grabbed his shoulder. "Don't be so hasty, Abarai Fukutechu. Aizen Sosuke may be a traitor, but he's still a captain. Also, remember that you've already fallen victim to his Kyoka Suigetsu, and his subordinates are also captains." Renji blinked. "His Kyoka Suigetsu? What do you mean by me having already fallen victim to it? I thought that his Zanpakuto was dash." Hiruzen shook his head. "He's been lying to everyone this whole entire time. His Zanpakuto, Kyoka Suigetsu, has the ability of what you might call complete hypnosis." "Complete hypnosis?" "That's right," said Hiruzen. "Although I'm not exactly 100% sure on this, anyone who should happen to look upon the Zanpakuto in its Shirkai state falls victim to its complete hypnosis, and there's absolutely no way to free themselves from it. But I should still at least try to dash. And remember that you gave Ichigo your word that you'd protect Rukia with your life," Hiruzen reminded him. Renji looked down at the ground as he ran. "I dash, I guess so." "Don't worry, Renji Fukutechu," said Hiruzen with a slightly encouraging smile. "Naruto, he's been preparing for a showdown with Aizen for quite some time. We'll be alright." Rukia stared blankly at the trees they passed by as Renji ran with her in his arms. "Naruto, Ichigo, just how far are you two willing to go in order to save a friend? I feel as if you two were meant to meet each other. I felt as if it was fate, but I also feel as if you two are too similar for your own goods." "Wait, what?" Renji suddenly looked back at Hiruzen. "You mean that there's more than one subordinate?" Haku nodded. Yes, he said. One is Ikimara Jin, and the other one is. Stop, said Haku as he skidded to a halt. Renji looked at him, confused. What's going on, Haku Fukutechu? It's him, whispered Haku as he stared ahead at a figure approaching them. Who? Asked Renji as he stared at the figure. He could barely make out the long purple hair tied into braids and the clear orange goggles. Wait a second, is that? Tosen can aim. I must admit that I'm impressed, said Tosen as he stopped 10 feet in front of the 4 Shinigamis. You Shinobigamis are quite impressive. I suppose that living in the ninja world has its benefits, after all. Let me ask you this one thing, how was it that only you people were able to anticipate our every move when the others could not? Hiruzen narrowed his eyes as he glared at Tosen. We're here to take you in, Tosen can aim. How foolish. Tosen concentrated on their ryatsas and measured the distance between the formed shinobis and the 2 Shinigamis. He suddenly flash-stepped in between Haku and Hiruzen, raising his hand slightly. Satan Hakuja. A long white piece of cloth emerged from Tosen's sleeve and wrapped itself around himself and the 2 that he was after. That is, until. What? Tosen's head snapped to the right as he realized that he was about to use the Kido on not just Renji and Rukia, but Haku and Hiruzen as well. So they were somehow able to distort my perception of distance and time. Haku and Hiruzen used Tosen's surprised reaction to swiftly grab his arms, restraining him. You won't get away from us so easily, said Haku determinedly as the pieces of cloth began to wrap even tighter around them. A bright flash of white light enveloped the area, and it disappeared to reveal the 5 Shinigamis gone. Central 46 Compound, Suriidii, Soul Society. Aizen and Jin were barely able to dodge the torrent of water that was generated from Naruto's Zanpakuto. My, how dangerous, said Jin as he flipped over on his hands, pushing himself off of the ground in order to avoid a stream of lighting that threatened to strike him. Aizen drew his Zanpakuto and met Naruto's charge head-on, their Zanpakutos clashing with each other. Uzumaki-kun, you've grown, commented Aizen as he swung his katana at Naruto's head. Naruto ducked as Aizen's Zanpakuto whizzed over his head, thrusting his own forward in an attempt to pierce Aizen's heart. Aizen easily sidestepped it, slapping Naruto's Zanpakuto away with the flat of his blade. But is it enough? Naruto placed one knee on the ground and concentrated, his fist gently pressing against the smooth surface of the floor. He jumped into the air and performed a makeshift cartwheel in midair before Aizen could react. Not quite. He grunted as he slammed his fist into Aizen's face. Despite being cloaked in Kurama's shroud, Aizen easily shook off the punch, quickly flickering to Naruto's side and slashing at his side. Naruto flash-stepped a couple of feet away from him and glanced at Shursui, who was simply standing there, looking at Aizen with a peculiar look on his face. I wonder what he's up to. Minato quickly flickered to Aizen's side and stabbed at him with his kunai, but Aizen quickly saw this coming and met the kunai with his own blade. Minato grinned as he narrowed his eyes. Aizen's eyes widened in shock as Minato flash-stepped behind him. Aizen looked down and saw a large gash on his left lower torso and blinked. Impressive. He narrowed his eyes as he glanced back at Minato. How is this possible? I activated my Kyoka Sujetsu quite a while ago. He should have been trapped in my complete hypnosis, and yet, he glanced over at Naruto and the others as he tried to figure out what had just happened. I know for a fact that Uzumaki Naruto is able to counter my Kyoka Sujetsu with his Kyuubi's assistance, and I am also well aware that the other Shinobigamis know of my Zanpakuto's complete hypnosis and the fact that Uchiha Shursui, Fugaku, and Mikoto can use their Sharingans to cancel out my Kyoka Sujetsu's abilities, so what could be? Aizen's eyes strayed over to where Shursui was at. Is dash? Aizen ducked in order to avoid Minato's fast attack, his kunai slicing the tip of Aizen's hair as it passed overhead. You shouldn't assume that you've seen our full powers, Aizen, said Minato as he spun his kunais on the tip of his fingers. None of us had ever needed to go all out against an opponent. That's all. Minato quickly threw both of his kunais at Aizen as his eyes widened in shock, one after another. Aizen easily dodged these, but Minato surprised him by swiftly appearing behind him, grabbing the kunais and flickering to Aizen's side. Aizen crouched down and slammed his blade against Minato's kunais. The strength of Aizen's blow forced Minato back a couple of inches, surprising him. But that doesn't mean that Aizen isn't dangerous, thought Minato to himself, as he braced himself for another blow. He may be cruel and a traitor, but he's still one of the most skilled opponents that I've ever faced. But then, started Shursui as Naruto and Minato appeared next to him. It looks like we'll need to go all out in order to defeat you, Aizen Sosuke. Do not consider yourself worthy of facing us, Aizen Sosuke, said Minato as Jin walked over to Aizen's side. Consider it an honor that we consider you dangerous enough to crush with all of our might. Aizen narrowed his eyes as he stared at his vice-captain. How arrogant, chuckled Aizen suddenly, surprising the three. You three have yet to see what your opponent can do, and yet you already assume that you can defeat him? Minato grinned as he, Naruto, and Shursui all rolled up right sleeves, revealing a seal on each of their right forearms that were nearly identical to the ones that were placed on the captain and vice-captains who entered the human world. Aizen blinked, unwilling to show how surprised he was to the enemies. It can't be. What are those? Naruto sighed and gave him a grin. Having foreseen this event happening beforehand, My Tosen had my cousin place these seals on myself and the rest of the Shinobigamis before entering the Shino Academy in order to hide our true strengths. Jin slightly frowned at this. What you trying to say, Naruto-san? What I'm saying is that the total amount of our powers that were sealed off is around half, said Naruto. Aizen's eyes widened in shock as he said this. Impossible, the Ryatsus, with the exception Uzumaki Naruto's, which is obviously higher than a captain levels, could already be considered to be on a captain levels. And yet they're claiming to only be using half of their full power? Jin chuckled quietly to himself as he realized what this meant. Oh well, what can you do, Aizen Taishu? We best be getting out of here before this gets even more unpleasant, he said as a long piece of white cloth emerged from his sleeve. It quickly wrapped itself around the two traitors, and they disappeared in a blinding flash of white light. Just before they disappeared, however, Aizen saw a long piece of white cloth emerging from Shirsue's sleeve as well. So Kayaka Hill, Tsuruidai, Soul Society, Zabuza, Kushina, Fugaku, and Mikoto saw 3 flashes of white light appear around 10 feet from each other, and the light dissipated to reveal Aizen, Jin, Tosen, Haku, Hiruzen, Renji, Rukia, Naruto, Minato, and Shirsue standing there. Kushina narrowed his eyes as he saw Aizen. So it's finally about to happen. As her eyes drifted to Naruto and the others, her eyes widened as she saw their right sleeves rolled up. Naruto, Minato, and Shirsue Flash stepped in between Aizen and Renji's group, bracing themselves in case Aizen's group tried to attack. Oi Naruto! Yelled Renji. Naruto glanced back at Renji, and quickly turned his gaze back to Aizen and the others. Yeah, what's up? Renji scowled comically and slapped Naruto in the back of the head. Oi, look at me when I'm talking to you. Naruto scowled at him, and waved his Zanpakuto wildly at him. Hey! Can't you see that I'm in a bit of a critical situation here? Where's Ichigo? Asked Renji, his face serious again. Last time I checked he was with you, and now he isn't. Is he alright? I left him with that Byakuya a while back, said Naruto as he glanced at the direction that Ichigo and Byakuya were in. I'm sure that he's fine, Renji. Ichigo would never lose to someone like him. Renji closed his eyes and sighed. Let's hope. Naruto turned back to Aizen and the others and took up his position. Anyways, you and Rukia get out of here, alright? Renji narrowed his eyes. Are you kidding me? There's no way that I'm just gonna dash. Oi, tattoo brows. Renji's eyes widened in shock as Naruto glared at him. There's no way that I'll ever forgive you if Rukia falls into Aizen's hands. Take her and run right now. You have a promise to keep to Ichigo, remember? Renji bowed his head. You better win, Naruto. Naruto nodded, his eyes still fixed on Aizen. Yeah, I know, now get going already. Renji stared at Naruto and the others one last time before shooting up and speeding across the terrain. You better make it out of this alive, Naruto. Tosen stirred as he felt Renji and Rukia's Ryatsu growing further and further away. Shall I go and chase them down, Aizen-sama? Aizen smiled. No, can't aim. It's quite alright. We can track down those two in our own pace later, but taking care of these former shinobis is our main priority as of now. Naruto smirked when he heard this. Well, good luck on that, Aizen, he said in a mocking tone. Naruto and the other Shinobigamis placed their left hands on their respective seals, and as their power limiters began to glow, Naruto and the other former shinobis looked up at Aizen and his two subordinates, their eyes glowing as an overwhelming amount of Ryatsu began to flow from within them. Kai! Ichigo slammed the point of sword into the ground and clenched his teeth. Byakuya, who was just a few away from him, stumbled forward as he tried not to black out. He looked at his bloodied hand and clenched it into a tight fist. So you wanted to know why I was okay with killing Rukia? Ichigo turned around and faced him as he heard this. Those who have sinned must be judged, continued Byakuya. Once the sentence is decided, it's final because it is the law. So because it's the law, you'd even kill your own sister? Asked Ichigo. Affection for relatives, how ridiculous. Ichigo's eyes widened. What? Against the wall, any emotion is meaningless. I never had any of those emotions to begin with. The Kuchiki clan is one of the great 4 noble houses, and we must be an example for all Shinigamis. If we do not obey the law, then who will? Ichigo spat out a mouthful of blood. Sorry, but I don't understand. If I were you, I would have still gone against the law. Byakuya looked shocked. I see, so his enemy all this time was in fact Soul Society, not me. Kurosaki Ichigo, said Byakuya out loud. My sword has been broken by your free-spiritedness. This duel is why dash. Byakuya stopped as he felt a large group of Shinigamis approaching. Ichigo's eyes widened in shock as he saw Naruto, Minato, Shirsue, Zabuza, Haku, Hiruzen, Kushina, Renji, Rukia, Aizen, Jin, and Tosen appear around 100 feet from where he and Byakuya was. Ichigo scowled as he fell down on the ground. And Naruto? And Renji and Rukia as well? Just what the hell is he doing? I told that bastard to protect Rukia and he just dash. It seems that they've arrived, said Byakuya softly. Oi, Byakuya. Are Naruto and those other guys going up against Aizen and his subordinates? Asked Ichigo, glancing at him for a split second before turning his gaze back to Naruto and the others. You are correct, answered Byakuya in his usual cool manner despite the situation. Ichigo couldn't help but be annoyed by that as he glared comically at Byakuya. Yamamoto Genryusai had already been informed of Aizen's treachery by Hitsugaya Taishu and had asked Kaioraka Taishu to inform everyone in Siriidai by using Tentikura just a few moments before their fight had ended. Byakuya glanced at Ichigo as he saw him struggle to get up. "Where do you think you're going, Kurosaki Ichigo?" Ichigo looked up at him as he got to his feet. "I'm going to help Naruto kick that traitor's ass, of course," he answered as he frowned at Byakuya. "There is no need for that," said Byakuya, surprising Ichigo. "Remember why you came here in the first place, Kurosaki Ichigo." Ichigo looked down as Byakuya said this. "Well, yeah, but Uzumaki Naruto is more than capable of handling Aizen," stated Byakuya despite himself. Despite the animosity between him and Naruto, Byakuya was willing to give him credit when it was due. He is one of the strongest members of the Godai 13, and he and the other former shinobis are more than capable of defeating the traitor. If you doubt my words, then stay and see what I mean. Meanwhile, Tosen's eyes widened in shock as he felt an enormous burst of Ryatsu coming from the Shinobigamis. What is this? The former shinobi's Ryatsus have doubled? How is this even possible? At this rate, Tosen turned to look at Aizen. "Aizen-sama, what dash?" Tosen's head snapped around as he felt Kushina extended her hand out towards them. 10 pink bolts of energy materialized around Kushina and sped towards the three traitors. Aizen and his two subordinates quickly dodged the attack by using Flash Step, barely avoiding the devastating explosion that followed. Aizen narrowed his eyes and grinned as he saw this. To use Heido 91, Senju Koten Taiho without calling out its name or reciting the incantation at full power Kido had always been Uzumaki Kushina's strong point, but then again, for the most proficient Kido master to have ever been produced in all of Soul Society, a task such as this is trivial. Jin looked down at his singed left arm and looked at Aizen. It seems that 5th Division Sanseki-san's attacks gotten even stronger. If they got any more surprises up their sleeves, I'm afraid that we're gonna have to retreat, Aizen Taishu. Aizen glanced at his subordinate. It seems like it. Aizen suddenly blinked and smiled unexpectedly. Well, if it isn't 11 ND Divisions Momochi Yansaki, 2 ND Divisions Haku Fukutechu, and 8th Division Saratobi Fukutechu. How good of you to come and finally join us. Zabuza stared at Jin as he slowly drew his Zanpakuto. You're not getting away this time, Ikemaru Jin. You're going to pay for pulling that prank on me last year. My, grinned Jin. You're being even more scary than your captain. You're strong enough to defeat your captain, but unlike him, you ain't afraid to use your full powers if necessary. Flattery won't get you anywhere, Ikemaru. Slaughter, Shiko Hito, yelled Zabuza. Zabuza's Zanpakuto began to glow and expand until it became what closely resembled an oversized butcher knife, but the only difference was that this one had a large hole toward the front of the blade. Shiko Hito was pale gray, and it had a blood stain in the front of it. The large hole towards the front seemed to be surrounded by a condensed sphere of mist which seemed neither solid nor liquid. Zabuza held the blade in front of him, the point extended towards Jin. Get ready, Ikemaru. Oh, how scary, faked Jin, holding his hands up in mock defeat. Your blade is fitting considering the fact that you've lived your whole entire life nicknamed as the Demon of the Hidden Mist. Anyone who's laid eyes on it have been terrified cause of its unique powers. I'd better be careful. Zabuza bowed his head, chuckling quietly to himself. The only non-shinobi Shinigami that's been able to survive my Shiko Hito in a fight was my captain, Zaraki Kenpachi, and that's only because I spared him out of my respect for him. Jin chuckled at this. Oh, one question, said Zabuza. Jin looked up at Zabuza. Zabuza flipped his sword over and showed the flat of his blade to Jin, and the sphere started to slowly leak out a thin wave of mist. Would you rather I leave enough of you to bury, or would you rather be cremated? Heido 73, Soren Sokatsui. Mikoto called out. Tosen quickly dodged 2 bursts of Ryatsu before they could hit him, quickly weaving to the left and right in order to avoid the ankens that Mikoto had quickly thrown at him right after. Her ankens are coated with a deadly poison. If I'm not careful, I'll be dead within minutes. It'll be a pain to avoid all of them though. Tosen raised his Zanpakuto and skillfully deflected a couple of the ankens, ducking as he dodged another. As he backed away from the ankens, his head snapped to the side as he felt Kushina's presence behind him. Crap, said Tosen to himself as he quickly stabbed his katana into the sword. He swiftly retaliated by swinging his leg at her, but Kushina easily blocked the kick and sent a barrage of kicks and punches at Tosen. The former captain grimaced as he felt Kushina's fist pass dangerously close to his head. If I remember correctly, Uzumaki Kushina rarely used her Zanpakuto during battle, mainly relying on her Kido and Hakuta skills instead. He swiftly slapped aside a punch and kicked at Kushina's stomach. Ah! Cried Kushina as she went stumbling back a couple of feet. Head just kidding. Tosen's eyes widened in shock as Kushina appeared behind him. He quickly ducked as her Zanpakuto swung over his head. But then again not as rarely as Uchiha Shursui. Kushina sheathed her Zanpakuto and smiled. Tosen's head snapped to the right as he realized that Kushina had been distracting him so that he wouldn't notice Fugaku slowly sneaking up on him. Tosen grimaced as he grabbed his right arm, suddenly realizing that Fugaku had swiftly slashed him in multiple places. Damn it, my right arm is useless. Tosen's hand automatically dropped his Zanpakuto, and he quickly grabbed it with his left hand, sheathing it. I see now I can't wield my Zanpakuto. Tosen bent his body backwards, dodging a horizontal slash from Fugaku. Tell me, Fugaku, began Tosen as he sent Fugaku skidding back a couple of feet with a kick to the chest. Why is it that you are fighting me when you have no fear emanating from your blade? Che! Fugaku quickly retaliated by speeding towards his captain and slashing his sword up at him, aiming to slice his captain's face from the chin up. I've never cared for your ideals, Tosen. Tosen's eyes narrowed. What? I admit that there was a time when I believed in something similar to what you believe in now, admitted Fugaku as he rested the blade on his katana on his shoulders. But then what? Inquired Tosen. But then, those ideals, coupled with my clan's hatred, were the very things that caused the destruction of my clan, stated Fugaku, surprising him. It only caused pain and misery to my own 2 sons, the only 2 survivors of my clan. Go on, said Tosen, suddenly interested. And then in my time in Soul Society I learned that fear is unnecessary in battle as it only brings lack of resolve, a cowardly sense of self-preservation, and ultimately, the deaths of the people that you wish to protect before your own inevitable demise. What did you say? Tosen clenched his teeth in anger as he tightened his left hand into a fist. Without fear, there is no sense of justice. The only thing that one needs in battle is to be at peace with oneself, the acceptance of their own mortality, and the determination to do what your own heart feels is right, and my heart is saying to stop Aizen and anyone who takes side with him. You, Tosen. Tosen grabbed the hilt of his Zanpakuto with his left hand and slowly drew it from its sheath. You, those who pervert the balance of justice must be eliminated no matter what. You have no fear, Fugaku? That is understandable, but you have reached your limit. You 3 will ultimately fail, Tosen, stated Fugaku as he pointed the point of his sword at Tosen's heart. Would you like to know why? It's because unlike you, the other Shinobigamis and I aren't afraid to die if that's what it takes to stop you. If that's the price that we have to pay, then so be it. In order to save Soul Society and what we believe, we're willing to give up our lives. Tosen's eyes widened at this. Such strong resolve. This is the end, Tosen, roared Fugaku as he charged at him. Meanwhile, Renji, who was still carrying Rukia in his arms, skid to a halt as he saw a group of figures approaching from a distance. Is that Renji squinted as he tried to make out who they were. Renji-san. Rukia-san. Oh, it's Inoue and the others, exclaimed Rukia as she waved at the group. Inoue, who was with Yuichiro, Ishida, Chad, Ganju, and Mikizo Aramaki, stopped in front of Renji and Rukia. Are any of you hurt? Asked Rukia as she looked over Inoue. Inoue shook her head. No, we're all fine. Rukia's eyes widened in shock as she felt herself fall through the air. She quickly landed safely on the ground, but Renji collapsed on the ground from exhaustion. Renji-san. Inoue quickly knelt by him. He's out cold. Oh no, Rukia sighed. It's probably from his battle with Nisama and carrying me around all of this time. It's my fault. Ganju grunted as he grabbed Renji and hoisted him on his shoulder. There we go, said Ganju. We're all ready to go. Chad suddenly grabbed a wobbly Rukia before she could complain and carried her in his arms. Chad. Rukia looked embarrassed by the fact that she had to be carried all of the time. Okay. Chad glanced at the others before nodding. Let's move. Wait. Mikizo cried out. We should probably head back now that we've got Rukia-san with us. Who's with me? Litsuka. He yelled as he turned around and started marching away. Oi. Ganju grabbed Mikizo by the back of his uniform and kicked him in the butt. Don't you even think about it, Chobihige-san. Agreed Yuichiro. That's right, Maki. We can't go back now, Mikizo pouted. But, Ishida pointed to Sokaika Hill. If you haven't forgotten, Ichigo's still up there, and that Aizen guy might be too. Mikizo's eyes widened. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. If what we heard about that Aizen guy is true, then Ichigo might be in serious trouble, said Ishida as he clenched his teeth in anger. How could you dash? Ishida stopped talking as he and the others felt an overwhelming amount of Ryatsu coming from Sokaika Hill. Chad looked shocked by this. Whose Ryatsu is that? He asked no one in particular. It's obviously not Ichigo's, but, as the group continued to stare at Sokaika Hill, they unconsciously stepped backwards as they saw a massive storm cloud in the shape of a hurricane beginning to form. The storm cloud began to spread all throughout Tsuriyai, grabbing everyone's attention as they stared up at the sky. Rukia-san, what's going on? Asked Inoue, a frightened look on her face. Rukia's eyes widened in shock as she began to realize what was going on. She blinked and turned to Inoue and the others, suddenly calm. This can only mean one thing, she said. Inoue and the others looked confused. What does it mean? Asked Ishida. It means that Naruto, everyone's head, excluding Rukia's, snapped towards Sokaika Hill as they heard a sound similar to a dragon's roar in the distance from inside of the storm clouds, has achieved Bankai. Minato tilted his head to the side, easily dodging a thrust attack from his former captain. He flipped over on his hands and kicked the flat of Aizen's blade with impressive force that forced Aizen back a few feet. Aizen slashed at his arms, and Minato quickly reacted by pushing himself off of the ground using his arms and flipping over so that he landed on his feet. Aizen kept his cool as he studied the movements of his former vice-captain. Impressive, the Shino-bigamous have to upper hand as of now. If we keep on like this, then. Aizen's eyes locked onto Shusui's as he glanced at him and Naruto, and his eyes narrowed as he saw Shursui smile. So Aizen, began Shursui. How does it feel to finally be on the verge of defeat? Aizen simply shook off the comment and responded to it with a question of his own. Uchiha Shursui, it's quite obvious that you are not standing there just for show, so tell me this, what have you done to me? Shursui smirked slightly at this. Aizen, he said slowly. As my enemy, it would be almost suicidal for me to reveal the secrets behind my abilities, but Aizen raised an eyebrow. But, I will say that your Zanpakuto isn't the only one that can manipulate others. Now, Shursui's Zanpakuto, Karasa no Hansha, had 3 main abilities. The first one was Karasa no Sudia, which is activated by Shursui himself, and everything within the blade in Shursui's sight falls into illusion similar to Kyoka Sujetsu's complete hypnosis. But Shursui could also manipulate his opponent's perception of space and time. This ability could also be further enhanced with his Sharingan. The second ability, Shin no Hansha, activates on its own accords at the moment of the Shurikai's release, and it protected Shursui's mind from all foreign entities and all forms of manipulation, including Kyoka Sujetsu's complete hypnosis. The third ability, Nier, allows Shursui to extend his Shin no Hansha ability to others around him whenever he wanted to. But the downside to this ability was that he could not use his Zanpakuto to enhance the reach of his Karasa no Sudia while Miura was activated. Aizen's eyes widened in shock. So he's placed an illusion on me? To have placed an illusion on me that's even more powerful than my own. Aizen clenched his teeth and unexpectedly rushed towards the wounded Byakuya that was lying on the ground, his sword raised for the kill. Farewell, Kuchiki Taisha. What? Aizen looked shocked as his attack was suddenly blocked by Naruto, who was looking at him with a very angry look on his face. Aizen, you coward! Spat Naruto as he pushed Aizen back an inch, their blades scraping against each other. You must have no shame if you're willing to attack an unarmed person who can barely stand. Byakuya stared at Naruto with a look on his face despite being shocked by Naruto's actions. Uzumaki Fukutechu. Naruto glanced back at him. What is it? Why are you protecting me when you despise me so? Asked Byakuya calmly. Naruto ducked and avoided Aizen's blade, countering the move by swinging his own sword at him. It's just something that I learned from my sensei back in the shinobi world. Naruto took a deep breath as he stared at Byakuya. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. I may see you as someone who's worse than a scum, but you're still a comrade, and more importantly, you're Rukia's older brother, so as far as I'm concerned, I can't, and I won't let Aizen kill you even if I can't stand you. Byakuya's looked shocked. Uzumaki Naruto, he's the same as that Kurosaki Ichigo. Our confrontations over the past several days were truly an attempt to save Rukia's life, and he was only following his own heart from the start. Byakuya snapped out of his thoughts as Naruto pushed Aizen back several yards with brute force. Naruto turned around to see his dad and Shursui appear beside him. Tosen, Shursui-sensei, get everyone else to stand back, said Naruto quietly, his head bowed. I'm going to finish this battle once and for all. Ichigo looked angry at this. What? Naruto, I know that Byakuya and I might be in a bad state right now, but we can still help you guys fight Aizen. I know that, stated Naruto as he glanced over at him. But I'm not worried about Aizen hurting you too. Ichigo's eyes widened. What do you mean? Naruto looked up at Aizen with a serious look on his face. I'm afraid that I don't have enough control over what I'm about to do now, so you guys might get caught in the crossfire. What do you mean by that, Uzumaki Naruto? Asked Byakuya calmly. Minato quickly caught on to what his son was saying and looked hard at him. Naruto, he said quietly. Have you really achieved Bankai? Naruto nodded in response. I'm sorry for disobeying your orders as you told me not to obtain it yet, but I dash. It's alright, replied Minato. You don't have to say anything. I already knew that you would go ahead and do it without my permission, but I'm just glad that you waited as long as you did before going on with your Bankai training. Just be careful, son. Minato quickly grabbed Ichigo by his Shihakusho and disappeared. Shursui and Byakuya quickly followed suit. Naruto turned to Aizen and deactivated Kurama's shroud, causing Aizen to look surprised. Why did you do that? Asked Aizen curiously. I'll activate it again after I activate my newest trump card, he replied. Don't worry about it. Aizen's eyes widened as he realized what Naruto meant and jumped forward to stop him, but it was too late. Naruto released a monstrous level of Ryatsu that surprised Aizen and overwhelmed him, and he stared at Aizen with a determined look in his eyes. It's time to end this battle, Aizen, roared Naruto. He pointed his blade into the air, the tip of the katana gleaming against the sun. Bankai. Minato and the others, including Aizen, looked up at the sky as they saw the sky beginning to darken. Giant storm clouds started to form over Naruto's head, and the storm clouds slowly began to spread throughout Tsuruyaidai, causing everyone to look up at the sky, wondering what was going on. A loud roar echoed above the cloud before a massive column of water, wind, and lightning fell from the storm above. Everyone looked on in amazement as the massive column of elements channeled itself through Naruto's Zanpakuto, eventually expanding to encase him until he could not be seen from the outside. After a few seconds, the column created by Naruto's Bankai dissipated while the giant storm clouds overhead organizing themselves to form a massive maelstrom. Kamikaze no Mi! Naruto yelled out as he emerged from the dispersed column, revealing himself to Aizen. Naruto was cloaked in armor similar to the one that the spirit of Kamikaze wore, made purely of lightning along with a shortened Chikuto that was connected to the armor with an extendable rope made of pure lightning. On the back of the armor was the Uzumaki clan crest made out of black lightning. Naruto stared hard at Aizen, his gaze even more serious than before. I hope that you're ready, Aizen, because you're about to die on this hill. Aizen-sama! Aizen glanced to the left and right as Jin and Tosen appeared next to him. Jin observed Naruto's new form, his seemingly permanent grin growing even wider. My, how scary, he said jokingly. And I thought that you were scary enough without your Bankai. Naruto smirked at this. I've had just about enough of your sarcasm, he said. I'm really going to enjoy putting some real fear into you. Jin opened his to question this, but he stopped as he saw Naruto beginning to channel his Ryatsu through his blade. Naruto pointed the tip of the blade at Aizen and his two subordinates. Idai Genso Ikari. Aizen and his two subordinates' eyes widened in surprise as a wide beam of what seemed like water, wind, and lightning shot out of the tip of Naruto's Zanpakuto. So fast, thought Tosen as he readied himself. Boom! Aizen and the two others were barely able to dodge the attack as it completely devastated a good portion of the area. Even though they were able to dodge the attack, they were blown back several meters back due to the intense shockwave that was generated by the attack. Aizen narrowed his eyes as he went flying through the air. Quite an attack. Uzumaki Naruto's Zanpakuto had always been able to manipulate wind, lightning, and water, but the ability to manipulate all three elements at once is a new one. If he has any more tricks up his sleeves, then I will be forced to retreat without the Hogyoku. Naruto reactivated Kurama's shroud right after he sent Aizen and the others flying, grabbing his tethered blade and throwing it at Aizen repeatedly. Ichigo's eyes widened as he saw this. This is just like what my inner hollow did when he fought me. Naruto silently activated his ability Hyoko while he quickly threw his Chikuto at Aizen and his subordinates rapidly. This ability allowed him to imprint a kanji for Kaze, Raime, and or Mizu on whoever/whatever he hit with the blade. He could imprint up to 3 marks for each kanji at a time. By the time Aizen and the others had regained their footing, Naruto had managed to mark each of them twice. Naruto stopped throwing the blade and looked up at the sky, surprising Aizen and the others. Why stop attacking us, Naruto-kun? Asked Aizen curiously. Naruto sighed and turned his gaze to Aizen. You should be more patient, Aizen. You're just about to get your answer. Naruto looked back up at the sky and raised his blade, pointing it at the sky. A wide beam of water, wind, and lightning shot out from the tip of the blade, speeding towards the maelstrom that lied above Naruto. Erishur no Sirai. The ground seemed to tremble as the sound of multiple dragons roaring shook the very air itself. Ichigo, who was watching the entire fight alone with Byakuya and the other Shinobigamis, was utterly amazed and bewildered by what was happening right in front of him. Just what's going on here? He whispered. At that point, Renji, Rukia, the rest of Ichigo's friends, as well as Yuichiro, Mikizo, and Hanataro, who met up with the group on their way to Sokaiku Hill, came running into view from the distant, skidding to a halt when they reached Ichigo and the others. Minato narrowed his eyes upon seeing the group, especially Orihime, Yuryu, Chad, Ganju, and Hanataro. So those are the other intruders. To that 4 humans and 1 Rukangai resident were willing and able to go this far just to save a friend and were even able to convince Hanataro to help them. Minato then smiled at the idea. I can see why Naruto took an interest in them. It sounds like something my son would have done himself, he thought as he turned his attention back to the fight. Ichigo looked surprised as he saw them. What are you guys doing here? He asked. Ishida looked annoyed by this question. What are we doing here? We're here to get you out of here, obviously, Kurosaki. Oh, I never asked for you to, replied Ichigo with a comical look on his face. Ishida scowled as he stepped forward. What? You dash. I said that I didn't dash. Ishida suddenly turned around as he noticed Aizen and the others fighting a blonde-haired figure. Hey, Kurosaki, are those 3 who I think they are? Ichigo nodded, suddenly serious. Yeah, Ishida, if you're thinking that they're the ones responsible for what happened to Rukia, then they are. Inoue, who was standing next to Ishida and Chad, blinked as she spotted the blonde Shinigami. Hey, who is that person that's fighting those 3? She asked, looking over at Renji. That's Uzumaki Naruto, said Renji weakly. Inoue, Chad, and Ishida looked shocked. Chad looked down at Rukia. Kuchiki-san, who exactly is this Naruto anyways? Rukia sighed as she looked at her vice-captain. Juzen Bantai Fukutechu, Uzumaki Naruto, he's my vice-captain, as well as one of the strongest members of the Godai 13. He's also a close friend of mine, and he's also a former shinobi. Ishida looked confused. A shinobi? What does that dash? He was suddenly interrupted by a terrified Hanataro pointing at the giant maelstrom above. The maelstrom is getting even bigger. He squeaked. Everyone looked up at the direction that Hanataro was looking in and saw that the storm was growing. It had now already grown over 5 times in size in the past couple of seconds, and it now reached as far as the 4th districts in all of the 4 regions of the Rukangai area. "Oi, look up there!" yelled Ganja suddenly. "There's something coming out of the sky." The group then turned their gazes at the sky directly above Naruto just as 3 large openings in the storm clouds formed above him. At that moment, the areas that had been engulfed by the maelstrom were suddenly beset and drenched by heavy rain and wind. Naruto glanced up at the sky and then turned his gaze to Aizen and his subordinates. "Erasure no Surei is my Bankai's most powerful ability. However, it also uses up so much of my Riryoku that if I don't deactivate it in time, my Bankai will forcibly deactivate itself, after which point I won't be able to use it until that lost Riryoku is restored after 5 days," Naruto explained. "Os, fade to black." From Bleach, link www.youtube.com watch, V equals WSBV7CJZLKS. Remember to include the backspaces and slashes. "It's a big gamble for me to use this attack." Naruto stopped just in time as the sound of the roaring dragons returned. This time, however, the roars continued to grow louder and louder until the source of the roars finally emerged from the 3 openings in the storm clouds in the form of 3 massive dragons that all had glowing red silk pupils. One was composed of water, while the other 2 were composed of wind and lightning, respectively. Everyone on the hill stared at the magnificent beasts in shock. Ishida's eyes widened as he saw them. "Just what the hell are those things?" he said quietly to no one in particular. Aizen looked surprised and stared at them with wide eyes. "This is, as I was saying," said Naruto, catching Aizen's attention. "Despite the dangers of Erasure no Surei, its sheer power makes it worth taking the risk, as you're about to see." The lightning from Naruto's blade and tether suddenly dissipated, and the lightning from the 2 objects reappeared around Naruto's hands, which he used to create the dragon seal. His hands now looked like 2 lightning gauntlet. "How, Kaze no Surei?" Aizen and the other 2's eyes widened in shock as the wind dragon suddenly flew at them like a bullet, the 3 barely being able to dodge it. Unfortunately for Aizen and his cohorts though, Aizen was marked with the Kaze Hyoka, so the dragon simply swerved and sped towards them once more. "Not so fast!" cried Naruto as he saw them dodge. Crash! Mizu no Surei! The water dragon, to the trio's surprise, joined in the assault and sped towards the 3. They were barely able to dodge both of the dragons as they crashed into the ground next to them. It was much more difficult to dodge, however, as Jin and Tosen were both marked with the Mizu Hyoka that were now glowing as well. The 3 were now trapped between the 2 dragons, and as the beasts charged at them, Naruto narrowed his eyes. "You guys won't be escaping again. Roar Raime no Surei." As he said this, the dragon made out of lightning attacked Aizen and the others from above. Between the 3 of them, they managed to hit the 3 with a pincer attack, and as the result of the attack, the collision of the 3 dragons created a massive shockwave that destroyed part of the Sokaika hill that the broken scaffold was on, causing it to collapse and fall to the ground below. As the blast subsided, Naruto deactivated Erasure no Surei and reverted back to his Shurikai, causing the sword to reappear on his right hand. The storm slowly subsided, causing the maelstrom to disappear. Naruto grimaced slightly as he gripped his sword tightly with his hand. "If I had taken another minute to finish this battle, then I would have lost my Bankai for 5 days." Naruto turned his attention to Aizen and the others, who had been critically injured as a result of the attack. It was quite obvious that they were no longer able to fight as a result. Naruto pointed his sword at Aizen, who had been so badly injured that Jin had to prop him up on his shoulder. "The fight's over, Aizen. You've lost." At that moment, Ichigo, his friends, as well as the other Shinobigamists and Shinigamis, suddenly appeared and rushed over to where Naruto and the others were. And OSD. Aizen, to Naruto's surprise, chuckled lightly despite his grievous injuries. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he got into his fighting stance. "You might have won the battle, but this war is far from over." Naruto opened his mouth to respond, but before he could say anything, Aizen and his cohorts were enveloped in a large square beam. Naruto, realizing that they were about to escape, got ready to attack them. "Do not attack," said a voice behind him. Naruto stopped and looked behind him to see the captain commander there. He also saw that Yukitake, along with Suifome, Unohana, Shunsui, Hitsugaya, Ranjaku, and Yoruichi had arrived with the rest of the group. "Captain Commander!" exclaimed Naruto. "This is called negation," explained the captain commander. "It's something that Minoses used to rescue some of their own." Naruto turned to look at the Jillian's dash, and anyone who's fought against a Minos knows that once the light descended on Aizen, we could no longer touch him. Naruto sighed at this. The captain commander looked at Aizen, then Naruto. "You still fought well, Uzumaki Fukutechu. Thanks to you and the other former shinobi's valiant efforts, you all have managed to stop Aizen from achieving his goals and an injustice that would have put Seoul society in grave danger." This dash. The captain commander looked up at Aizen as he heard a light chuckle coming from him. "How arrogant of you to assume that, Yamamoto Genryosai," said Aizen. "Uzumaki-kun and the other shinobis have only managed to slow down my plans, and I will eventually succeed in my plans." To everyone's surprise except for the other Shinobigamists, of course, Naruto flashed Aizen a goofy grin. "I don't think so, Aizen," said Naruto surprisingly as he reached into his Shahakusho and pulled something out of it. I don't think that you'll get very far without this. What? Whispered Aizen. He stared at the item in Naruto's hand in disbelief, unable to comprehend what it was at first. The item was a small, translucent and lavender object that closely resembled a marble. Aizen, who couldn't believe this, clenched his hands into a fist. Is that the Hogyoku? He asked aloud, his voice calm despite the situation. Oh, so that's the name of this thing? Asked Naruto in a mocking voice. There's no way that you could have known about the Hogyoku, hissed Aizen as he glared at Naruto. Especially after your actions from our initial confrontation at the Central 46 compound, there's no way. Naruto chuckled lightly, and then to Aizen and the other Shinigami's surprise, burst into a full-blown laughter. I was only pretending to act like I didn't know what you were after, laughed Naruto. I was only angry over you calling Rukia a pawn. Naruto ceased laughing as he grinned at Aizen. Did you really think that the other shinobis and I didn't know what you were after, Aizen-chan? You see, when Rukia first came back from the world of the living, I learned about the Hogyoku being sealed within her because Kurama had sensed a second set of emotions within her. Get it? Aizen narrowed his eyes as he heard this. Who thought that it was a good idea to give that blasted Kyuubi the ability to sense negative emotions? Anyways, said Naruto. After that, I made a deal with Mayuri Taishu to get the Hogyoku out of Rukia while she had been asleep in the cell at the 60th Division's barracks under my watch in exchange for a certain favor. Naruto shuddered at this, but then, I did lie to the captain about the true nature of the item, and I'd kept the Hogyoku on me since that time. Aizen, realizing that he had been outsmarted by Naruto of all people, clenched his teeth in rage as his eyes grew wide, blazing with anger. You little bastard, he said as he arrived at the top of the negation. I will make you pay for this insult in time, Uzumaki Naruto. You can try to attack Soul Society as much as you want to, but if you could be outsmarted by an idiot like me, then I'm pretty sure that we have nothing to worry about, replied Naruto smugly. Aizen smiled unexpectedly at this. We shall see about that. A second later, he vanished into the Garganta along with Jin, Tosen, and the other Minos. After this, Naruto walked over to the Captain Commander and handed him the Hogyoku. I think that it would be best if I gave this to you, Suteichu, said Naruto as Yamamoto took the object from his hand. I will make sure that the Hogyoku is hid well so that Aizen will never be able to find it, stated the Captain Commander. Uzumaki Fukatechu, you fought well, and I thank you. Naruto opened his mouth to respond with it was no big deal, but instead, he collapsed on the ground much to everyone's shock. Minato and Kushina immediately rushed over to their son's side, and Kushina laid her hands over Naruto and started to heal him. Is he okay, Kushina? Asked Minato with a worried look on his face. Kushina simply turned to Minato and gave him a smile. Yes, she replied, unable to hide the relief from her voice. Inoue, who was watching this, turned to Rukia. Say, Kachiki-san. Rukia turned to Inoue. What is it, Inoue? Who are those two people that are with Uzumaki-kun? She asked. Rukia turned her gaze to the three and smiled. They're Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina, the vice captain and the third seed of the 5th division, and they're also Naruto's parents. Inoue and the other Ryokas looked surprised by this. Naruto, who had managed to stay awake, blinked and looked around the devastated area. Hey, Ichigo, I think that I might have overdone it a bit. Ichigo looked at the area where the Sokaiku stand used to be, and he turned to Naruto, a comical scowl on his face. You think? After the final showdown between Naruto, Aizen, and his two subordinates, Naruto was sent to the Sogokyugo Tsumisho for a couple days in order to recuperate from overusing his Bankai and Kurama's shroud. Those two things had placed great strain on his body, which is why he had suddenly collapsed after his battle with Aizen, but thanks to the immense stamina that he inherited from his Uzumaki clan lineage, he had recovered at a shocking speed. Naruto had decided to only use both abilities at the same time as a last resort though. After he had fully recovered, Naruto spent the next 2 days running the 13th division due to Yukitake Taishu being temporarily beset by another bout of illness, but he had also managed to hang out with Ichigo and his friends who had hung out in Suriidai for a couple of days. He had also managed to make some amends with Byakuya, who was still recovering from his fight with Ichigo, but there were still some things that they had to work on. Naruto had also learned, unfortunately, that there had been fatalities as a result of Aizen's actions, as the entirety of Central 46 had been murdered. This meant that the full authority over Soul Society was now in the hands of Yamamoto Genryosai. 13th Division Barracks, Suriidai, Soul Society. 5 days after Aizen's betrayal, Naruto and his captain Yukitake walked up to the 13th Division Barracks from the 1st Division Barracks and entered inside of it. Naruto looked surprised as he saw Rukia standing near the doorway along with Ichigo and the rest of the group. Kaion and Satoru were there as well. Kaion and Satoru shot up at the sight of Naruto and Yukitake and rushed over to them. Yukitake Taika! Exclaimed Kaion as she pushed her fellow third seat aside. Oi, Kaion! Roared Satoru as he planted his face against hers. I saw the caption first. What? Kaion slapped his across the face and jumped on him, pummeling him with her fists. You want to say that to my face again, Baka? Yuria sighed and looked at Naruto. Don't those two ever stop arguing with each other? Naruto blinked as he watched the two fight. Nope. Rukia looked up from watching the two wrestle with each other and looked at Naruto and Yukitake. Where have you and Naruto been, Yukite Taishu? She asked as she glanced outside. The sun's already setting. Oh, that, said Yukite. Since the 3rd, 5th, 9th divisions had been left without a captain due to Aizen, Jin, and Tosen having defected, the captain commander had been busy finding their replacements. I see. Rukia blinked, not understanding where her captain was going with this. Yukite looked up at the ceiling as he thought back to the meeting that he and Naruto had just come back from. Minato Fukutechu and Fugaku Fukutechu, the lieutenants of the 5th and 9th divisions, respectively, had both achieved Bankai a long time ago, and with the leadership experience they had from when they were still alive, they were both promoted to the captain positions of their respective divisions through personal recommendations. Also, Rukia tilted her head to the side. Yes? I had recommended Naruto for the captain proficiency test, which is why we were at the 1st Division barracks for so long. Ichigo realized what was going on and looked at Naruto. Oh, so you've actually been promoted to captain, Naruto? Naruto looked down sheepishly. Well, it's going to be made official the following morning, but Ichigo blinked. What's up? Well, I'd much rather stay in the 13th Division and have Shursui-sensei become to captain, but Shursui-sensei had refused to take the test even though he had met the requirements because he feels that he's not the type to be a leader. But even so, Naruto stopped talking and turned around to see Rukia walking up to him. His eyes widened in surprise as she wrapped her arms around him, giving him a light hug. Naruto blushed slightly as he didn't have any girls give him that type of close contact other than when Sakura would punch him in the face. I'm happy for you, said Rukia unexpectedly. You deserve the promotion, Naruto, and you should accept it proudly. Naruto smiled at this. Thank you, Rukia. Kion, who had finished pummeling Satoru, ran over to Naruto and bowed deeply. Congratulations, Naruto Taishu, she said with a big grin on her face. I'll miss you a lot, and No, I'll miss you more, Naruto Taishu, yelled Satoru as he came rushing up to him. Hey, I was talking to him first, you baka, scolded Kion as she punched Satoru in the face. Naruto blinked as he watched the two fight once more. I wonder if they even know that I'll still be able to visit the 13th Division. So Kayaka Hill, Tsuruidai, Soul Society. 2 days later, Ichigo and his friends, along with Naruto, Yukite, Minato, Fugaku, and the other Shinobigamists, arrived at Sokayaka Hill where a Senkaman had been prepared for Ichigo and his friends. Yukite had already given Ichigo the substitute Shinigami badge. Naruto and his dad were now wearing a sleeveless captain's haori, while Fugaku was wearing a long-sleeved one. Kushina and Shursui had been promoted to vice-captains and now wore the vice-captain armbands. A couple of the other captains were present as well. Ichigo and Rukia looked at each other as they bid their farewells to each other. Well, CYA, said Ichigo as he smiled at her. Yeah, Rukia gave him a small smile. See you later. Ichigo turned to look at Naruto, and Naruto walked up to him. Take care of Rukia for me, Naruto, said Ichigo. Of course I will, replied Naruto with a grin. After they bumped fists, Ichigo turned around and entered the Senkaman along with his friends. Until we meet again, Naruto, said Ichigo, and with that, he disappeared. After the Senkaman closed, Naruto remained still as he stared at the gate. Ichigo and I might have to see each other much sooner than expected. Naruto, called Rukia as she turned around to walk away. Yeah, I'm coming, answered Naruto, running after her. Karakura High School, Karakura Town, 6 months later. Ichigo yawned as he dropped down on his seat, exhausted. Rukia, who was sitting next to him, blinked and slapped him across the head. Hey, scowled Ichigo as he glared at her. What was that for? Pay attention, baka, sniffed Rukia, who had resumed her duties as the guardian of Karakura Town a few weeks prior. High school's important at your age, you know. Ichigo rolled his eyes as he picked up his pencil for the test that was today. Ichigo's teacher walked in the classroom at that moment and slapped a ruler across the palm of her hand. Okay everyone, she said. Does everyone have a pencil ready? Yes? Okay, good. She glanced around the room and nodded. Beg dash. Oi, Ichigo. Ichigo, his teacher, and his classmates all turned around as they heard someone calling for him from outside the school. Ichigo blinked. Huh, hurry up and come out before I go in there and start looking for you, Ichigo. You've got 5 minutes, yelled the voice. Yuria narrowed his eyes. I know that voice. Oki Misato, Ichigo's teacher, turned to look at Ichigo, as did the rest of the people in the room. Hey Kurosaki, do you know that dash? Ichigo jumped out of his seat and sprinted outside the classroom before she could finish. Just a relative, Ichigo yelled out as he ran outside of the room. Ichigo's teacher blinked. Your relative? Outside of the school, a blonde-haired figure stood under a tree with an orange t-shirt and black pants on. Ichigo, yelled the figure as he cupped his hands around his mouth. Hey Ichigo, a voice behind the figure sighed before when spoke. It was in a stoic and calm male voice. Do you really think that this Ichigo character will come out if you keep yelling for him? The blonde-haired figure stopped yelling and turned around to face the figure behind him. Of course he will, he replied. I know that Ichigo will come out, there's your proof right in front of you. The second figure turned around to see where the blonde was pointing at, and he blinked in surprise as he saw a tall orange-haired figure heading their way. There he is, sang the blonde-haired figure as he saw him. Ichigo, Ichigo scowled at the figure as he charged at him, his head bowed. Have you lost your goddamned mind, Naruto? He roared as he angrily charged at him. Naruto easily sidestepped Ichigo's attack without even looking as stared at the school building with a bored look on his face. Ichigo crashed into the tree that Naruto had been hiding under, and quickly jumped up with a red mark on his face. So is that how you greet the guy who helped you to control your inner hollow and taught you to control Ryatsu enough so that you could place your Zanpakuto in a sealed state? Asked Naruto angrily yet comically. 2 months after Ichigo had returned home, Naruto had come to Karakura town and, with the Captain Commander's permission, trained Ichigo to control his inner hollow, which had nearly broken out several times before that point, and he had also taught Ichigo how to place his Zanpakuto in a sealed state. As the Ryatsu from Ichigo's constant release shuriken was causing the number of hollows and the incidents related to them to steadily increase, Ichigo remained angry despite this and shook his fist at Naruto. It is when that same guy makes a huge ruckus in front of my friends in order to get my attention. Before the two teenagers could argue any further, the voice from earlier coughed, getting both of their attentions. Naruto, please remember that we have come for something other than a fistfight. At this point Rukia arrived at the scene. She seemed surprised by Naruto's appearance. And Naruto? What are you doing here? Wait. Rukia's eyes widened as she felt something near her. There's someone on the other side of the tree. You come out of there now, she ordered when she recognized the person's Ryatsu. The figure sighed and walked out from behind the tree, revealing himself to Ichigo and Rukia. The figure had black hair that he had tied into a low ponytail all the way down to his shoulder blades. He was wearing a dark blue shirt and gray pants. His most noticeable feature was the tear troughs under each of his eyes, as well as his red eyes with 3 tomos in each eye. Ichigo's eyes widened as he saw the figure. The Sharingan? He cleared his throat as he stared at the figure with narrowed eyes. Are you an Uchiha? He asked slowly. The figure nodded, confirming this. My name is Uchiha Itachi. I'm Kurosaki Ichigo, said Ichigo. This guy acts a lot like Byakuya. I think that I remember that name. Ichigo had learned from the other Uchihas well, as Naruto was unwilling to discuss the matter of Itachi and the things that he had done. Are you a Shinigami now as well? Asked Ichigo. Yes, replied Itachi. Itachi had died just a little over a year ago, explained Naruto. I won't go into the details, but he had graduated from the Shino Academy just a week before Rukia had returned to Karakura town, and he's now my vice captain. Kira Izuru was demoted to the 3rd seat. I tried to get him into the Godai 13 without getting into the academy first because of the approaching conflict with Aizen and his lackeys, but the other captains rejected this, and dash. But why are you and this Itachi here in the first place? Asked Rukia, realizing that something serious was going on. Naruto's expression suddenly turned solemn before Ichigo, who suddenly realized what was going on, looked at Naruto. Is something happening in the shinobi world, Naruto? Itachi answered this question. Something is going to happen very soon, and we know for a fact that Aizen is getting involved in it. Ichigo narrowed his eyes. Naruto, did you come to ask for my help by any chance? Naruto nodded after a brief pause. I need someone that I can trust, but I'll understand if you can't dash. Ichigo shook his head, interrupting him. I'll do it. Naruto gaped at him in surprise. Huh, you're my friend, said Ichigo bluntly. Also, after all the time you had taken to train me, it's the least that I could do. I see, but I do have 2 conditions, said Ichigo. First, I want to say bye to my friends as I'm sure that this journey's going to take a while, and secondly, you have to tell me what the problem is that you need my help with. Naruto nodded even though he had been planning to explain the situation to Ichigo regardless of whether or not he asked for one. Agreed, but the explanation will have to wait until we get to Siridia as some details have to be provided with others. Ichigo nodded, signaling that he understood. Itachi blinked and turned around to leave. We will be waiting for you at Urahara Kasuke's shop, he said. Naruto had met Urahara the first he had come to Karakura town, while Itachi had met him shortly before he and Naruto had come to Ichigo's high school. And with that, Naruto and Itachi headed off towards Urahara's shop, leaving Ichigo and Rukia alone to ponder on the situation. Siridia, Soul Society. Ichigo looked around the area as he, Naruto, and Itachi arrived in Siridia. Ichigo also had his new Zanpakuto in its sealed state. It was now in the shape of his original oversized Zanpakuto except that it had a silver tsuba and pommel with a black hilt. The brown sheath was also now attached to the red rosary-like strap around Ichigo's chest. The trio entered the Captain Commander's office a few minutes later, stepping into his office and beginning to explain the situation to Ichigo. Welcome Kurosaki Ichigo, Uzumaki Taishu, Itachi Fukutecho, said Yamamoto. What's up, Gramps? Sniffed Ichigo. It appears that Aizen has been sighted in the shinobi world and we have also been informed that he had been trying to create an alliance with a group known as the Akatsuki since he had left Soul Society with Ikamaru and Tosen, explained Yamamoto. Wait, Ichigo scratched his head as he thought. So why are these Akatsuki guys so dangerous? It seems that they are after a group of beasts known as Bijus, excluding your Biju of course, Uzumaki Taishu, said Yamamoto. Since he died, he cannot be revived back into that world. At this point, Itachi stepped in. I was concerned about the danger that the group posed to Konoha, So I had joined the Akatsuki in order to keep an eye on them and to stall them for as long as I was able to. Shortly before my death, however, I was able to learn that the Akatsuki had planned to make their move the following year, and that time is now approaching fast. While the 2nd Division and the Amatsukido are the ones with sole jurisdiction over the shinobi world, the possibility of Aizen getting involved and acquiring the other Bijas as a result, we can no longer allow just a single division to handle the situation in hand, explained the Captain Commander. As a result of this situation, Suifeng Taishu and you, Uzumaki Taishu, will lead a 5-man team to the shinobi world to eliminate the Akatsuki before they can acquire the Bija. You should also note that Hitsugai Taishu and Abarai Fukutechu have volunteered to join the mission. Ichigo thought about this. So are we going to be like asking for help from Konoha as well? Soifin, who had been standing in the back of the room, stepped in for this question. That's a negative, she answered. While they can see us Shinigamis, they still do not know of our existence, and unless Aizen directly targets the shinobi world, it will stay this way. Since we have to briefly go to Konoha regardless of that matter, Uzumaki Taishu will be going there with his identity concealed. I see, replied Ichigo. Are there any questions? Asked the Captain Commander. Very well then, he said. All 5 members of the team are to make preparations for the journey. You shall all be departing for the shinobi world in exactly 5 hours. Everyone nodded and headed for the door. Each member headed for their respective division barracks, with Ichigo going with Naruto and Itachi to get a few things for the journey. As Naruto and the others entered the 3rd Division barracks, he stopped and turned to Itachi. Itachi, you'll be taking charge of the 3rd Division while I'm gone, so don't go and screw this up, okay? Itachi blinked, his face just as blank as always. You mean like the time you blew up the SRDI? Oi! Raged Naruto as they reached his office. Shut it! Naruto opened the door to his office, and once they stepped inside, Itachi looked around the slightly spacious room, examining and taking in every detail of the room. The room was about 25 by 25 feet, and aside from the shelves and cabinets overflowing with papers and documents, there was a desk in the opposite side of the room with a lamp and 3 picture frames. The 3 pictures were what caught Itachi's eyes. As he walked over to the desk, what he saw surprised him. The picture on the left was a picture of Naruto and his parents, the one in the middle was a picture of Naruto, Yukitake, Kaion, Sentaro, and Rukia, and the picture on the right was a picture of Naruto with Team 7. Wow, say, aren't you worried that we might blow your cover, Naruto? Asked Ichigo as he leaned over Itachi, looking at the pictures. Naruto walked over to one of the cabinets and opened it up, rummaging through the stuff in the drawer. Well, that's the reason why these were made for me, he replied. Naruto turned around to face Ichigo wearing a black hooded cloak over his uniform along with a mask. It was large enough to completely cover his body, and Ichigo noticed that it repressed all but a fifth of his ryatsu. The mask that he wore was a white mask with 2 narrow slits for eye holes that also had 2 blue vertical stripes as a design, each one going down past each slit. Ichigo noticed with mild surprise that Naruto's hair, which was blonde, was now jet black. So, does that mask do anything? Yeah, it does, Naruto confirmed. This mask projects an illusionary Kido. Urahara Kasuke made this for me around the time that I was training you. Having said this, he pulled a second cloak out of the cabinet and tossed it to Ichigo. Here, put this on. Huh? Ichigo blinked. Why do I have to wear one? Don't worry, said Naruto, reassuring him. The cloak is only to suppress your ryatsu. If we don't, then your ryatsu could draw unnecessary attention from the Konohanins, as they're always wary of outsiders. Alright, grumbled Ichigo as he put on the cloak. Oh, stop grumbling, said Naruto in an annoyed tone. Soifin, Toshiro, and Renji all have to wear one as well. Naruto then turned to Itachi. Okay, Itachi. Good luck with everything, and dash. Let me give you one last word of warning, said Itachi, stopping Naruto. Sasuke gave Sasuke my eyes before I died, so he now possesses the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. If you do go to Konoha, be careful with him. Naruto nodded, a serious look appearing on his face. I know. Anyways, continued Naruto, glancing sideways at Ichigo. Ichigo, it's time to leave. Got it, replied Ichigo, stretching out his arms and legs. Let's go. And with that, he and Naruto stepped away to the 2nd Division barracks, leaving Itachi to himself. 2nd Division barracks, Suriidai, Soul Society. Ichigo looked up with an impatient look on his face as he waited outside near the forested area near the 2nd Division barracks along with Naruto and Soifin. Geez, sighed Ichigo. Where are those two? Soifin was wearing a black cloak similar to the ones that Naruto and Ichigo were wearing, but hers was a little bit smaller, and she was also wearing a mask, similar to the one that Naruto was wearing, but hers wasn't projecting an illusionary Kido. So said Ichigo for like the 10th time that day. Why is Soifin wearing a mask if it doesn't do anything? Oh, that, said Naruto. Well, due to various assassinations of certain high-level shinobis learning a bit too much about spiritual-related matters, Soifin has quite the reputation in the shinobi world, which is why her identity needs to be concealed. Ichigo seemed surprised by this. Wow, really? Oi, Ichigo. Ichigo and the others turned around to see Renji and Hitsugaya running towards them. Hey, Renji! Yelled Ichigo, waving his hands at them. Once the both of them arrived at the spot where Ichigo and the others were waiting, Ichigo saw that they were wearing the same black cloaks that everyone else was wearing. Well, that took long enough, said Ichigo, glaring comically at Renji. Renji blinked, confused. What? He looked at Hitsugaya, then at Ichigo. Wait, what do you mean, that took long enough? We were the furthest away, Baka. Yeah, whatever, said Ichigo, waving him off. Of course Baka's use stupid excuses, Baka. Huh? Renji leaned over at Ichigo, his face pressed against Ichigo's. You want to say something, Shinigami Daiko? Ichigo's face grew red at this. Oh yeah? Well, I may be a Shinigami Daiko, but I can still kick your ass, Baka. He scowled. You want to try? Yelled Renji. Ichigo grabbed the hilt of his Zanpakuto from behind his back. Let's do it, Baka. I'll kick your dash. Thud. Ichigo and Renji fell on the ground as Naruto slammed both of their heads together, rubbing their heads as they glared at each other. Stop arguing, you Bakas! Raged Naruto. If you guys didn't notice, we're about to go on a freaking mission here. Hitsugaya sighed as he pinched the bridge of his nose in exasperation. Those Bakas. He then turned to Naruto, who was standing over the troublesome duo. My apologies, Uzumaki Taishu, he apologized. It seems that we kept you guys waiting for quite some time. It's nothing, said Naruto, waving his apology off. If you guys are done arguing, please look over here, said Soifin, catching their attention. Once she got everyone's attention, she raised her hand and snapped her fingers, the sound echoing throughout the clearing. Ichigo looked on in amazement as a large red torii gate materialized in front of the group, the double doors slowly creaking open. This gate is the official portal to the shinobi world, explained Soifin. Since the shinobi world is a completely world from the world of the living, it's only natural that there's a different form of the usual Senkaman, and anyone who's either a former shinobi or a member of the Amatsukido and the second division would have knowledge of how to use this gate. Now, be careful once we enter the shinobi world, she added, turning to specifically look at Ichigo. The Akatsuki members that we're supposedly hunting are extremely dangerous S-rank Nukenines, but we might need to fight against shinobis from the other shinobi villages that we're forbidden to kill under any circumstances. After giving everyone the warning, Soifin turned to the Senkaman, motioning for everyone to follow her. She and Naruto, the only ones among the group wearing masks, pulled up their hoods as they entered the Senkaman gate. Valley of the End, the shinobi world. 1 minute later, Naruto and the others looked around their surrounding area as they arrived in the shinobi world. The area around them was basically just large masses of rocks shaped into the form of makeshift mountains. In the middle of the two mountains was a large body of water, and in the very front of the valley was a waterfall with two figures carved from rock standing on either side of it. The figure on the left was a figure with long and spiky hair with his bangs swept to the side and covering one eye. He wore a traditional samurai armor, and his right hand was clasped against the hilt of his sword. The figure on the right had long straight hair, and he was wearing a headband around his forehead. He was also clad in some kind of samurai-like armor, and both figures had their left hands up with their index and middle finger up while their other fingers were curled into a fist. Renji scratched his chin as he looked around the area. So what exactly is this place, Uzumaki Taishu? This is the Valley of the End, replied Naruto, closing his eyes and breathing in the fresh air. A long time ago, there was a fierce battle between the two legendary shinobis Uchiha Madara and Hashirama Senju. Their fight was so fierce and devastating that their battle left a giant scar on the land this place. Ichigo, Renji, and Toshiro looked surprised. Wow, stuttered Ichigo. That sounds intense. Toshiro turned to look at Soifin. Is this true, Soifin Taishu? Soifin nodded in response. It is. I actually witnessed the battle myself with my own two eyes. Uchiha Madara and Hashirama Senju, their powers are absolutely frightening anyways. The Amatsukido built a hideout a few miles south of the valley, so we'll rest there for the night. Ichigo narrowed his eyes as he stared at Naruto, noticing the fact that he was staring intently at the center of the valley. Soifin, also noticing this, walked over to Naruto and laid a hand on his shoulder. Are you alright, Naruto? She asked, a surprising tone of genuine concern in her voice. Naruto sighed. Yeah, Ichigo blinked, a confused look on his face. What did Soifin mean by that, Naruto? Naruto turned to look at Ichigo, a fierce light in his eyes. This was where I fought my friend Sasuke before I died. He had just betrayed the village in order to join this guy named Orochimaru, an extremely powerful shinobi who wanted to take control of Sasuke's body for his Sharingan. I tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen, so we ended up fighting it out. At the final moment of our fight, I used Kurama's chakra to create an enhanced version of my most powerful jutsu, Rasengan, while Sasuke used the power of the curse mark that Orochimaru had given him to create an enhanced version of his most powerful jutsu, Chidori. Our jutsus collided, and the result of it is what you see here, he said, pointing to the chunks of rocks missing from the two figures' legs. Sasuke ended up piercing me through the chest, continued Naruto. As I fell into the water, I found out that I was paralyzed by the electricity from his attack, so I couldn't move my body. It was then that I realized that I was going to die. I just hope that Sasuke and the others are okay. Naruto suddenly looked up at Ichigo and the rest of the group, shaking off his past memories of his final battle. Anyways, we should go to the hideout and rest for a bit. Ichigo nodded. Yeah, let's go. Konoha, the shinobi world. Naruto, Ichigo, and the other Shinigamis looked up as they approached Konoha's main gate. They all had their black cloaks on, but Naruto and Soifun were the only ones who had their hoods up. Ichigo glanced at his pass, and then at Naruto and Soifun, who had their masks on. So why does my pass have my actual name on it, and yet yours and Soifun's are aliases? Asked Ichigo, looking at Naruto. Before they arrived in Konoha, Soifun had given every member of the group a pass that was necessary to enter any of the shinobi villages. Ichigo, Renji, and Tashiro's passes all had their actual names on them, while Naruto and Soifun's had aliases written on them. Naruto's alias read Menma, while Soifun's read Wasapu. Naruto turned to Ichigo, and when he spoke, the mask had altered his voice to the point where he sounded similar to his father, Minato, but exactly like him. Unlike Soifun Wasapu and I, no one knows who you are, Ichigo, so you can use your name without much difficulty. That's also the reason why you're acting as an escort for us. Now, the first part of the Shinigami's plan was to go to Konoha, where Soifun had a covert access to all of the village's networks, including one of the legendary Sanin's Jiraiya's spy network. This was to gather any information on their targets, and more importantly, where those targets would strike next. Renji and Hitsugaya's part was to locate the Jinchurikis outside of their villages and get them back to the said villages or any other safe location if they happened to be missing neens. In order to lower the amount of suspicions of their true identities, Naruto and Soifun would be traveling under the pretense that they were members of the Land of Grass Daimyo's family. This was fitting, as traveling nobles often kept their identities concealed in the shinobi world, and Ichigo would be acting as their escort under the pretense that they had been on a trip to the Land of Waves. Once they had obtained their intel, which would take at least a few days, Naruto and his group would rendezvous with Renji and Hitsugaya at the Canopy Bridge in the Land of Grass before deciding their next move. Ichigo scratched his head as he heard the explanation from Naruto and Soifun. Are the Konoha ninjas really gonna buy such a story? They sound like a bunch of dull group of people if they are. Well, they had better. Or we might have a group of those pesky shinobi from the ANBU Black Ops division tailing us for hours after we leave Konoha. Ichigo sighed but remained silent as the group reached the gate. Konoha Cemetery, Konoha, the shinobi world. 3 days later, a tall figure with spiked black hair walked across the cemetery and stopped in front of two graves placed next to each other. He wore a sleeveless dark gray shirt along with dark blue pants, and he also had on a pair of black metal forearm gauntlets along with a dark gray Konoha headband on his neck. On his back were two blades of kodachi and a wakizashi that were worn diagonally across from each other. The figure was Uchiha Sasuke, and he had just finished visiting his mother and father's graves and was now standing in front of two tombstones where he pressed his hands together and bowed, paying his respects to the two deceased. The two tombstones were decorated with pale yellow lilies and dark red roses, and on them were carved the name of the fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato, and his wife, Uzumaki Kushina, along with a few other things to honor their memories. Fourth Hokage Uzumaki Kushina, whispered Sasuke, his eyes closed as he straightened up from his bow. Why didn't I listen to Naruto sooner? After the battle at the Valley of the End, Naruto had been considered to be MIA and not dead, as the Konoha shinobis had no idea what had really happened to him. After Sakura and the others intervened, Sasuke had not been punished by the council for his actions. He still wished to seek out Orochimaru and extract his revenge on Itachi, but Jiraiya, realizing just how important Sasuke was to Naruto, decided to reveal Naruto's heritage, as well as another few important facts about him, and why Naruto had gone so far as to bring Sasuke back. Upon hearing the truth about Naruto, as well as his conscience beginning to heavily weigh down upon him, Sasuke developed a tremendous amount of guilt for trying to kill his best friend. This also caused him to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, which in turn purged Orochimaru's conscience from the curse mark, even though Sasuke still wielded the power of the curse mark. He then decided to put his desire for revenge aside in favor of finding Naruto and bringing him back to Konoha. Sasuke confronted Itachi a year later before Naruto's mission, and after telling Itachi of what he planned to do, as well as declaring that until he had brought Naruto back to Konoha, he wouldn't seek him out in order to kill him, Itachi realized just how much he had grown and had decided to tell Sasuke the truth of the night of the massacre. Upon hearing this, Sasuke lost the desire for revenge, but at Itachi's insistence, they decided to fight each other then and there, if only to settle the issue once and for all. Sasuke defeated Itachi due to Itachi's illness plaguing him, but had been left nearly blind due to overusing his Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi then asked Sasuke to take his own eyes as a last request and asked him to use them to protect Konoha. Sakura, who had been present for the whole entire battle, proceeded to implant Itachi's eyes into Sasuke once he had been confirmed dead. Sasuke gained the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and his will to find Naruto grew even stronger, and he was also now preparing for an inevitable confrontation with Tobi after he had done so. In addition to this, the rest of the Konoha 11 as well as Sai, who had temporarily replaced Naruto as a team member, were willing to give him another chance, as he was changing for the better. As a result of the past events, Sasuke visited Minato and Kushina's graves once a year on the day that he had fought against Naruto at the Valley of the End. Sasuke-kun. Sasuke looked up from his deep thoughts and opened his eyes, turning around to see Sakura standing behind him, her hands clasped in front of her. Sakura, who looked and dressed very similar from the older a couple years ago, had grown out her hair, and she now styled the back of her hair into a long ponytail which hung past her neck. She had grown taller, and her body had more curves. She now wore a red sleeveless red top that stopped right below her bosom, and she also wore a red miniskirt with slits on the sides as well as a mesh body suit on underneath her red top that stopped right above her belly button. The mesh also extended all the way up to her forearms where it stopped, and she also wore them underneath her miniskirt with bandages wrapped around her left leg. She still wore her headband behind her front bangs, and she wore her usual long black boots. "Sakura, what is it?" asked Sasuke quietly. "The others have already headed out, and Sai's waiting for us right now," said Sakura. "Very well." Sasuke sighed and glanced one last time at the two graves before turning around and walking away. As Sasuke passed Sakura, she opened her mouth to speak. "It's been 3 years since Naruto disappeared," she said. "Sasuke-kun, do you think that we'll ever find him?" Sasuke paused next to her, his bowed head. "We'll find him, Sakura, we just have to." Sakura nodded, and they both vanished into thin air as they went to meet up with Sai. Ichigo turned to Naruto as they walked through the Konoha training grounds. "Oi, Menma, I guess that the Konoha shinobis aren't a bunch of idiots after all. This happened because you called them that." Ichigo, he frowned. Ichigo, and Soifin suddenly used Flash Step to dodge a wave of Fuma shurikens that flew towards them. The trio turned to see 9 figures standing behind them. Naruto's eyes widened in shock from behind his mask. "Of all the people they could have sent, they had to send my friends," Naruto thought to himself as he and his companions were confronted by his friends from teams Asuma Kurenai and Guy. One of the figures stepped forward and extended his hand out. He wore a long white robe-like shirt with loose sleeves that closed on the right shoulder along with matching pants, and a dark navy-gray apron tied around his waist. "Please forgive Tenten's rudeness just now," he said as he motioned to a female with Chinese-style buns on either side of her head standing next to him. "My name is Hyuga Niji, a jonin of this village. Now, please stand down and make this as easy as possible for the both of us. We have been ordered by the Hokage to arrest you 3 and bring you in for questioning." Ichigo bared his teeth as he grabbed the hilt of his sealed Zanpakuto, which was holstered on the back of his cloak. "Screw you guys. You can take those orders and shove them up your ass if you guys think that we're just gonna go anywhere with you guys." "What?" Tenten pointed at Ichigo, a smirk on her face. "You seriously think that we can't take care of a bunch of lost bakas? There's 9 of us or 3 of you, baka." "She's right, orange-haired kid," mumbled a fairly chubby male with long spiky brown hair that hung past his back. "We've got the advantage by sheer numbers alone." "Oi, I wasn't talking to you, you fat ass," spat Ichigo. Naruto drew back from Ichigo as he saw the figure's face turn red. "Oh, that baka just called Choji fat. We're screwed, we're so screwed." What did you just call me?" whispered Choji venomously. He suddenly seemed to explode as he charged at Ichigo, his fist drawn back. "I'm not fat, you baka. I'm just pleasantly plump." Choji's eyes suddenly widened as Soifin stepped in between them and stopped Choji's punch. "As she stopped my punch with a single hand? Maybe I should have just said no," mumbled Ichigo as he saw the other 8 figures taking their stance. "Gee, you think?" grumbled Naruto as he reached for his Zanpakuto. Soifin glanced back at the 2 out of the corner of her eyes as she tightened her grip on Choji's fist, causing him to wince. "Save your strength for the 3 other ninjas heading this way, you 2, she said. "I'll deal with these guys myself." Niji narrowed his eyes as he quickly executed a couple of hand seals. "Byakugan," he thought as he stared at Soifin. "This woman, if I'm correct, she's most likely at the level of a powerful Kage, and the 2 men are even stronger than that. This is going to be tough." Soifin's mouth curved into a wide grin as she felt a slight excitement rise up from inside of her. "Bring it!" Niji shifted his feet and charged at her with an impressive speed, jabbing his palm out as he aimed for her heart. Soifin saw this coming and tightened her grip on Choji's fist, throwing him over her shoulders and dropping on the ground, kicking up at Niji's arm with her foot. "Leave now," said Niji, glancing back at a bowl-cut figure wearing a green jumpsuit underneath a rough green flak jacket. "Get ready, intruder!" cried Lee, launching a swift combination of high and low kicks at Soifin. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she dodged all of his kicks easily. "He's not extremely skilled, but he's fast, alright, I'll give him that much." He suddenly crouched down on the ground as he swept his leg at her feet. Soifin saw this out of the corner of her eyes as she parried all of Niji's blows and grabbed her Zanpakuto, stabbing it into the ground and spinning in midair. She quickly landed a rapid succession of kick on both taijutsu users, sending them flying backwards. "Mind transfer jutsu." Soifin's eyes slightly widened in surprise as she saw a blonde-haired girl staring at her with her arms outstretched, her index and middle fingers along with her thumbs shaped in the form of a circle. She quickly used Flash Step to dodge the jutsu, appearing behind the figure and knocking her out before she had a chance to react. Choji ran towards her, his fist drawn back. "Partial expansion jutsu!" he cried. His entire right arm suddenly expanded, and he slammed his fist into the spot that Soifin was just at, the ground below him rumbling and cracking. Soifin wrapped her legs around his neck and executed a backflip, throwing him over her and sending him crashing into a tree. She suddenly sensed a figure behind her and spun around, raising her arms and blocking an attack from a long black-haired girl with similar eyes as the first figure. Heido number 1, show! Said Soifin, pointing her finger at the girl. Hinata! Yelled out a messy brown-haired figure as she went flying into a tree. He swore as Soifin appeared behind her and kneed her in the stomach, knocking her out. Damn it! Just what the hell is she? He rushed at Soifin, his eyes narrowed. Let's go, Akamaru! He roared as a large white dog ran by his side. Ninpo, beast-human clone! Akamaru suddenly disappeared in a cloud of smoke, emerging from it as an exact copy of his owner. Fawn over fawn! He roared as he and his copy jumped into the air, rotating at an almost violent speed. Too weak! Called out Soifin as she dropped to the ground, kicking both of them as they passed over her and sending them flying into the air. She crouched down on the ground and jumped into the air, flipping over and executing a drop kick on both of them. Thud! The ground seemed to explode as both figures slammed into the ground. A figure in a sea green jacket wearing his hood over his face as well as a high upturned collar extended his hands, sending a swarm of insects towards her. Go, my insects! He called out as the bugs swarmed in her direction. Soifin took her Zanpakuto and levitated it in the air, lightly tapping the end of the handle and sending it spinning in place. Heido number 58, Tenran! A giant tornado-like blast generated from the Zanpakuto blew all the insects away, surprising Shino. Soifin used this opportunity to flash step to him and slam her elbow into his back, knocking him out. Take this! Cried a voice behind her. Soifin spun around to see Tenten unrolling a giant scroll, and a giant cloud of smoke appeared, engulfing her. Soifin grabbed her Zanpakuto and spun it with both hands, deflecting the barrage of shurikens and kunais that flew towards her. You idiots need to learn your place, said Soifin as she sped towards Tenten and slammed her foot into her stomach, a hint of venom in her tone. Tenten cried out as she went flying, slamming into a large rock that stood in her way. Now sighed Soifin as she cracked her knuckles. Who's left? I suppose that's me, sighed a voice on her right. Soifin turned her head to see a guy with long jet black hair tied into a spiky ponytail staring at her with an almost lazy look in his eyes. My name's Nara Shikamaru, he yawned. Pleased to meet you. He slowly clasped his hands together and crouched down on one knee. Anyways, I don't want to get yelled at by the Hokage, so if you're gonna knock me out, then do it quickly. Shadow Possession Jutsu. Soifin's eyes narrowed as a thin line of shadow emerged from Shikamaru's own shadow, touching and blending in with the surrounding shadows around him. So this is the Shadow Possession Jutsu, said Soifin to herself as she looked around her. She suddenly jumped into the air as multiple shadows in the form of sharp needles shot out at her from her surrounding shadows. What a troublesome ability, commented Soifin as she flash-stepped away before one of the shadows could reach her. Shut up and get caught already, sighed Shikamaru. Anyways, you're right. My Shadow Possession Jutsu allows me to use my surrounding shadows in order to bind or attack my opponents. This particular jutsu is called the Shadow Sewing Jutsu. This allows me to use the shadows around me as weapon in order to attack my opponents if you haven't noticed already. Why is he talking so much? Wondered Soifin as she dodged the shadow needles. He doesn't seem like that type. And yet it sounds like, wait, is he Dash? Leaf Hurricane, crap. Soifin spun around and Flash stepped away, barely dodging Lee as his leg brushed her cloak. This guy, he's smarter than I thought. He seems lazy, but he's pretty strong and definitely smart. Soifin grabbed Lee's leg and threw him at Shikamaru, but he simply used one of his shadow needles to grab Lee and gently place him on the ground. Thanks, Shikamaru-kun, said Lee as he brushed his jacket off. Shikamaru's eyes widened as he noticed Soifin had disappeared. Crap. I take my eyes off of her for 1 second and dash. His eyes suddenly rolled towards the back of his head as he blacked out, Soifin standing behind him. She quickly dropped down on the ground and swept at Lee's legs, tripping him. Grabbing him by the arm, Soifin swiftly dispatched him with a blow to his neck. Stupid kids, she said quietly as she walked back to where Ichigo and Naruto were standing. Naruto silently walked over to the defeated ninjas and placed his hands on the conscious ones, using Hakafuku to put them to sleep before healing the group of ninjas. I'm sorry guys, but I can't let you interfere, he said. He suddenly glanced behind him out of the corner of his eyes as 3 figures appeared behind Ichigo and Soifin. The 3 figures were Sasuke, Sakura, and another pale figure with black hair and a dark gray shirt and matching pants. Ichigo glanced at the figures and turned to look at Naruto. I'll take care of these 3 Menma. Naruto nodded. Don't kill them, though, they're only trying to defend Konoha anyways. Once you beat them, we have to leave. I know, replied Ichigo quietly as he reached for his Zanpakuto. He held it out in front of him as he stared coolly at the 3 figures. So the guy in the center must be Sasuke, and that girl must be Sakura. So, does your huge sword actually serve a purpose, or are you just compensating from something? Asked the 3rd figure with a smile, which Naruto noted to be even more fake than Aizen's, on his face. Ichigo blinked. I'm sorry, apologized the figure with a smile. Maybe I should have been more clear. I meant to ask, do you have? Ichigo's face turned bright red as Soifin and Naruto struggled not to laugh out loud. What the hell kind of threat was that, you baka? He yelled, a comical scowl on his face. You were supposed to say stop right there, or take one step and you're dead. Nah, do you have a? The figure blinked, looking genuinely confused. Did I say something wrong? It's okay if you don't have anything between your legs, you know, Ichigo growled, seriously pissed off as of now. What's your name? He asked, pointing his Zanpakuto at the pale figure. I want to know whose ass I'm about to kick first. Who, me? Asked Sai, pointing to himself. My name is Sai. It's nice to meet you. Sai, huh? Grinned Ichigo. Well, I'm Kurosaki Ichigo. It's Dash. His eyes suddenly widened in surprise as he raised his blade, forced to block Sasuke's attack as he used both of his swords to slash at him. This is Dash, said Ichigo in a surprised tone. You're channeling lightning through your sword? This is surprising, said Sasuke in a calm tone. You shouldn't have been able to block my swords with a normal weapon, and since when did you assume that this was a normal weapon? Said Ichigo as his blade struggled with Sasuke's. What's your real name, intruder? Asked Sasuke, a calm look on his face. Che. Ichigo narrowed his eyes as he observed Sasuke. This guy reminds me of Yuria, how annoying. I've been using my real name this whole time. Then I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Uchiha Sasuke, said Sasuke as he forced Ichigo back an inch. If your group is going to fight, then my team and I are going to have to take you three out. Ichigo grinned as he pushed Sasuke back with his sword. It ain't gonna be that easy, Baka. He then tucked his Zanpakuto between his arms, and his eyes began to turn blue-white as his Zanpakuto began to glow. Protect Zangetsu, Konoha, the shinobi world. Tucking his Zanpakuto between his arms, Ichigo's eyes began to turn blue-white as his Zanpakuto began to glow. Sakura stared at Ichigo confusedly, and she unconsciously wiped the sweat off of her forehead with her arm. What's this feeling that I'm getting? She wondered inwardly. Ichigo narrowed his eyes, and the very air itself seemed to scream out as he slashed out at Sasuke with his Zanpakuto. Protect Zangetsu! Roared Ichigo. Thud! Sasuke jumped out of the cloud of dust that filled the air, barely avoiding the almost fatal attack. He glanced up with his eyes and wiped a tiny trickle of blood from his forehead with his finger, a surprised look on his face. Sasuke stared hard at Ichigo, and to his surprise, as well as Sakura and Sai's, he suddenly noticed Ichigo's transformed sword. Ichigo's sword now resembled an oversized kyber knife with a sleek black blade with a silver edge. It had no tsuba or hilt but a cloth-wrapped hang that Ichigo held onto, and the entire sword was almost as tall as Ichigo himself was. Sasuke grimaced slightly as he felt something churn inside of him. Something's definitely wrong here. He suddenly widened his eyes as he stared intently at Ichigo, his onyx eyes turning red as three spinning tomos appeared in his eyes. Sharingan, I am possible. Sasuke unconsciously stepped back as he stared at Ichigo with an expression of utter disbelief and horror on his face. This guy and his two friends are somehow suppressing most of their powers, and they're already at a Kage level? No dash. That's only concerning the woman. These two guys, they're easily at a level of a bijou. Ichigo, noticing the shocked expression on Sasuke's face, straightened up and rested the blade of Zangetsu on his shoulder. You scared? He asked casually. Well, you should be, because I'm going to kick all of your asses. Ichigo then built up a large amount of Ryatsu in his blade and swung it at Sasuke as his two team members. Getsuga Tensho! Shouted Ichigo as he swung his blade at them. Sasuke and the others looked on in shock as a large wave of blue energy in the form of a crescent generated from the tip of the intruder's blade and sped at them. They were barely able to dodge the attack, and Sakura cried out as she was hit by the impact of the blast and sent flying into a tree. So your sword actually does serve a purpose, remarked Sai cheerfully as he landed on a branch of a tree in a crouch. Ichigo's eye twitched as he heard this, and Naruto, seeing this, walked over to him and laid a hand on his shoulder. Calm down, Ichigo, he said. Also, watch where you fire those things, will you? If you aim it the wrong way, you could end up eventually destroying Konoha. Ichigo nodded, still facing forward. Got it, Menma, my bad. I dash. He suddenly stopped talking and blinked as he noticed a sudden spike in Sasuke's chakra levels. What the hell? He turned his head to face Sasuke, and his jaw dropped as the cloud of dust cleared up. Sasuke now had dark gray skin along with a black 4-point star mark between his eyes and across the bridge of his nose, and his hair was now waist-length in the same style. His sclerae and irides were now black and yellow, respectively, and he now had claw-like nails as well as unusual blue lips. What surprised Ichigo the most, however, was the fact that Sasuke had now grown large webbed hand-shaped wings on his back. Ichigo closed his mouth and grinned. Well, I thought that I had seen everything, but this is… Naruto stared at Sasuke in shock as he took a step forward. This is the second stage of his curse mark. It feels so different from last time, however. It feels as if the corruptive influence of the curse mark is gone, unlike before. Sakura glanced at Sasuke before biting her thumb and wiping the tiny trickle of blood across the palm of her right hand. Summoning Jutsu! She cried, slamming her hand on the ground. A giant cloud of smoke appeared, enveloping the whole entire area. Once the smoke cleared up, Ichigo saw a giant slug in place of the smoke with Sakura standing by its side. Katsuyu-sama, please take my friends away from this area and heal them while my teammates and I battle the intruders. Understood. said Katsuyu as it split up into hundreds of small versions of itself. Reaching into her top, Sakura pulled out a small scroll which she held out and unrolled. Quickly executing 3 hand seals, Sakura grabbed 2 large single-bladed kusurigamas that appeared from the cloud of smoke and held them out by her side. Ready, she stated as she stared at Ichigo. My team and I won't hold back, intruder, stated Sasuke as he stared at Ichigo. Ichigo raised his blade and held it out in front of him. Bring it on, Uchiha Sasuke, he said, rushing at Sasuke with his sword held out at his side. Ducking in order to avoid Ichigo's slash, Sasuke spun the sword in his left hand and stabbed up with it, aiming to stab Ichigo through his chin. Ichigo saw this coming and easily avoided it, but his eyes slightly widened in surprise as Sasuke used this moment to spin around and slash at Ichigo's back with both swords, his moves almost reminiscent of a dance. This guy's skilled with swords, said Ichigo to himself, mildly surprised. He quickly used Flash Step to get out of the sword's range, but Sasuke, having expected this, simply teleported to Ichigo's side and kicked at him. Ichigo grabbed Sasuke's leg and threw him against a tree, but Sasuke used his wings to balance himself in midair and pushed himself off of the tree with his legs, delivering a series of quick stabs at him with both swords. Ichigo dodged the attacks with little effort, but he grimaced slightly as one of Sasuke's blades sliced off a single strand of his hair. Okay, this is getting a little annoying, he said as he sighed inwardly. Slapping Sasuke's blade aside, Ichigo used Flash Step to appear above Sasuke, grabbing the cloth attached to his Zanpakuto and spinning his sword above his head. Getsuga no Kama, channeling his Ryatsu into his blade, Ichigo, instead of using Getsuga Tensho, used a version of that in order to amplify the power of his deadly darts technique that he had learned from his inner hollow. As he repeatedly threw his Zanpakuto at Sasuke, the impact caused a massive energy blast, surprising Soifun. Sasuke, surprised by this sudden move, barely managed to dodge the attacks as Ichigo threw his Zanpakuto at him, yanked it back, and repeat. Sakura, now, said Sasuke as he glanced at his female teammate. Kai! Shouted Sakura as she made a hand seal with her hands. If this guy can fight this well against Sasuke-kun, then I need to go all out from the beginning. Ichigo looked at Sakura with a surprised look on his face as a violet rhombus mark appeared in the middle of her forehead. The mark then extended and spread across Sakura's face in the form of lines. White strength seal, whispered Sakura as she glared at Ichigo. Now I'm ready. Rushing at Ichigo, Sakura jumped into the air and drew her fist back. Shinaro! She shouted as her fist slammed into the spot where Ichigo was just at a second ago. Ichigo wobbled and struggled not to fall as the entire area basically exploded from the force of the punch. What's up with this girl's strength? Screamed Ichigo comically as he sped away as fast as possible from Sakura. Suetun, snake's mouth, said Sakura as he ran towards Ichigo. A giant dragon-like snake made of water suddenly rose up from the rubble beside Sakura, charging at Ichigo with a loud roar. Ichigo silently swore to himself as he cut and sliced the jutsu, but the giant water snake rose up and twisted from side to side as it opened its gaping mouth to swallow Ichigo. Ichigo narrowed his eyes and channeled his Ryatsu through his blade, finally slashing at the dragon. Getsuga Tensho! He shouted as he slashed at the snake's mouth. The snake continued to charge through the attack, but it was finally overwhelmed by Ichigo's attack and died down with a roar, exploding and raining the area below with a short downfall of lifted her head and stared hard at him. Precise chakra control. This isn't anything that releasing my seal did. Sakura, watch out! Shouted Sasuke as he stared behind her with wide eyes. What? Sakura looked behind her, only to be cut down by Ichigo. Ugh, what? Ichigo looked down at the fallen Konoha shinobi as he laid the edge of his blade on his shoulder. Just kidding, he said dully as he looked up at Sasuke. Now, his eyes suddenly widened as he leaped back away from Sakura as she came up and tried to deliver an uppercut. What the hell? I know that I cut her down for sure, but she's still standing? Wait a second. Her wound's gone. But how is this possible? You're a hard one to take down, remarked Ichigo as he stared down at her. This is the power of my white strength seal, explained Sakura as she stared up at him. It basically gives me an indestructible body for a brief period of time. All of your attacks are useless as long as this jutsu is activated. Oh really? Said Ichigo quietly. Well then he lifted his blade to release a Getsuga Tensho, but he instead spun it around and used the flat of the blade to block Sai as he appeared behind him, his foot slamming into Ichigo's blade. Sai executed a couple of hand seals and brought his hands together, his index fingers crossing diagonally to form an X. Sai narrowed his eyes as he spun around and used his legs to lock Ichigo's arm and blade. Futon, raging wind, a powerful gust of wind generated from Sai's hand, and Ichigo swore and yanked his hand, using his brute strength to position his sword as a shield. The gust of wind slammed into the flat of Ichigo's blade, and he went flying into a tree from the sheer force of the attack. Using his legs, Ichigo landed on the trunk of the tree in a crouch and pushed himself off of it, surprising Sai as he swung at him with his Zanpakuto. That was a good try, said Ichigo as Sai quickly drew his own tipless Tanto and blocked his attack. Come to think of it, I said that I was gonna kick your ass first, didn't I? You sure did, Les Pansy, smiled Sai. Ichigo narrowed his eyes as he glared him. Why, you little dash. He stopped talking as he noticed Sasuke leaping into the sky. Summoning jutsu, said Sasuke in mid-flip, his hands outstretched. With a poof, a large brown hawk appeared in the sky, Sasuke landing on it as he glanced at Ichigo out of the corner of his eyes. As the hawk screeched and sped towards Ichigo, Sasuke whipped out 10 shurikens from seal on his arm and threw them at him in rapid succession. Using his blade to push Sai out of the way, Ichigo sliced the hawk in half and slashed at the air, blowing the shurikens away towards Sasuke with just his sheer brute strength. Ichigo quickly spun around instantaneously and blocked an attack from Sai, grinning as his blade scraped against Sai's. How you doing, pansy? Sai now. Ichigo turned around in shock to see Sasuke standing below him, his swords in hand. Looking back up at the other Sasuke, Ichigo's eyes widened as it disappeared into a cloud of smoke. What the hell? Sai suddenly retreated, leaving Ichigo all alone as he landed on the ground, looking around to see what was going on. This is it, intruder! Shouted Sakura as she suddenly appeared above him, her Kusarigamas spinning rapidly above her head. Chidori! Roared Sasuke as he ran toward him. He grabbed his wrist as he ran, and the lightning blue jutsu darkened and turned black, surprising Ichigo as well as Soifun. That's black Chidori, said Naruto in his head as he stared at it in shock. Futon, vacuum serial waves! Shouted Sai as he took a deep breath, breathing out multiple blades of wind that sped towards Ichigo. Take this! Shouted Sakura, slamming her Kusarigamas down onto Ichigo. Ichigo looked around and closed his eyes, taking a deep breath as he lifted up his Zanpakuto and channeled his Getsuga Tensho into it. Opening his eyes, Ichigo slammed the blade into the ground, causing a giant blue sphere to emerge around him. Getsuga Doma, what? Exclaimed Sasuke as he and his two teammates' attacks were repelled by the blue sphere of energy. This is getting annoying, frowned Ichigo. Quickly dissipating the sphere, Ichigo quickly teleported to Sakura's side and slammed the end of Zangetsu's hilt into Sakura's back, hard. Sakura's eyes rolled up towards the back of her head as she fell down on the ground, unconscious. Sai tried to attack Ichigo with his Tanto, but Ichigo took a deep breath and swung his Zanpakuto at him. Getsuga Tensho, Sakura! Sai's eyes widened in shock as he fell down on the ground with a large gash across his chest and stomach. Ichigo glanced at Sasuke out of the corner of his eyes. So you used that lightning thing of yours to soften the blow, huh? Good move. Soifun, who was watching the fight calmly with Naruto, turned to face him when she saw the blue sphere of Ryatsu surrounding Ichigo. Naruto, what was that move that he used just now? I've never seen anything like it before. Oh, that? Naruto said from behind his mask. That's Getsuga Domu, a defensive move that I helped him to develop after he had learned how to control his Ryatsu. He also developed the move Getsuga no Kama, which was the dart-like move that he used just a while ago. They're all basically variants of his Getsuga Tensho. I see Soifun turn back to face Ichigo as she watched him knock Sakura and Sai out. He's grown tremendously in just the short time that he's been a Shinigami. Ichigo quickly spun around and slashed at Sasuke, who blocked the attack with his two wings. That's an impressive form you have there, Sasuke, commented Ichigo as he stared at Sasuke's two wings. Sasuke glanced at his two unconscious partners and sighed. Wiping a small trickle of blood from his forehead, Sasuke quickly executed a couple of hand seals and slammed his hand on the ground. Summoning jutsu, a giant cloud of smoke filled the air, and a moment later, in its place stood a giant white snake that towered above the trees along with two smaller white snakes which still stood as tall as the trees. The biggest snake looked down at Sasuke, who was standing next to it. Sasuke-sama, it hissed in a surprisingly polite voice. Aoda Sasuke looked up at it. Order the two others to take Sakura and Sai back to the village. Aoda nodded and hissed at the two other snakes with a strange whistling sound. After a moment, the two other snakes nodded and slithered off to fetch Sakura and Sai, while Aoda stayed by Sasuke's side. You'll pay for hurting my comrades, you bastard, spat Sasuke angrily. Ichigo closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose as he shook his head. Isn't there any way that I could talk you out of this? Don't give me that pile of crap now after what you just did, said Sasuke. He stretched out his hand and motioned for Ichigo to approach him. Come on. Bring it. Sighing exasperatedly, Ichigo took his sword and held it out in front of him, gripping it with both hands as he stared hard at Sasuke. Very well then, if you're going to keep fighting, then I have no choice but to use it. Sasuke tilted his head as he looked at Ichigo inquiringly, but as he opened his mouth, Ichigo suddenly seemed to explode with energy as Sasuke stared at him with a shocked look on his face. Bankai! Yelled Ichigo. Thud! The entire area seemed to explode in a bright blue light as a column of wind resembling a mini tornado surrounded Ichigo. What is this? Said Sasuke to himself in utter shock. This power!